Late in the evening, only one room in the office had lights on. Li Huang's girlfriend stayed late at work. It was an ordinary evening and nothing foreshadowed trouble. Suddenly, quiet footsteps were heard from the corridor. Li Huang thought that one of the workers had returned to the office. The footsteps stopped at the door of her office. The girl thought it was strange that someone was standing silently behind the door and not coming in. Li thought it was auditory hallucinations due to fatigue. She calmed down and continued working. The footsteps and noise outside the door continued. This was not a man, but an evil spirit. Realizing that this was not a hallucination, the girl became alarmed. She saw something terrible in the glass door. Li Huang decided to stop this madness. She stopped working and headed for the door. When she opened the door, she saw no one. Despite this, she felt a heavy energy. Li Huang wanted to check the entire corridor. But suddenly the door to her office slammed shut on its own. In horror, the girl began calling her friend. When the first beep sounded, Li felt a creature behind her. She explained to her friend that something strange was happening at work. Quiet footsteps appear and disappear as she approaches the door. The girl was trembling with fear and could not do anything. The creature made steps, and Shu's friend heard it. Su told Li to return home immediately. Li Huang stayed in touch with her friend the entire way. Luckily, she returned home and immediately calmed down. There was deathly silence at home. Li Huang wanted to end the call, but suddenly felt the same aura. She heard quiet footsteps walking towards her room. Li Huang was speechless due to fear. The evil spirits have revealed themselves. Zhu tried to calm her friend down, but she remained silent. The eerie creature looked like a clot of blackness with devilish eyes. Li Huang was stunned and dropped her phone. She realized that the creature had been following her the whole way. That was the last time Shu heard her friend's voice. There have been several similar disappearances in the city in recent months. Investigators of similar cases recalled construction practices. Since ancient times, builders have walled people into walls when constructing a building. The recent incident on the bridge could have been avoided if this ritual had been performed. But the bridge is very bad, and one person would not be enough. Several people need to be walled in. Only then will the bridge hold. The conversation was about the strange jumps of 50 people from a bridge. In addition, there was a case of selling rice with corpse oil from missing people. After these events, people felt anxious every evening. The main character, Fan Zhang, returned home and did not know what had happened. In the hallway, he crossed paths with his neighbor. She was worried that someone was walking around the crime scene again. She was informed that the 16th person had already disappeared. The policewoman broke out in a sweat at this news. The hero heard for the first time that people were disappearing. The neighbor asked Fang Zhang not to go outside in the evenings. The hero has been living here for a long time, but he sees this girl for the first time. He remembered that the internet was full of strange news that he hadn't even read. He decided to log on to the site and look at the news. The news was about missing people, which was connected with evil spirits. But this news was deleted within a minute. In their place appeared news about Superman and ordinary thefts. But they also left. The hero's phone made a chat sound. Fan thought that the administrator decided to publish some news. The chat owner asked subscribers to look outside. Fan didn't understand what was going on and what kind of nonsense people were talking. He decided to open the window and freshen up. In the sky, he saw a huge blood moon. Even this told the hero that something was wrong with the world. At that moment, one of Fan's books began to glow. It was a book about cultivation. The book went out, and with it the moon became ordinary. The book definitely has something to do with the blood moon. Fan opened the book and saw a manuscript. The manuscript leaf contains incomprehensible notes. Fan realized that it was this particular leaf that was glowing. It all looked like the plot of a hard-hitting movie. The hero examined the records for 2 hours, but found nothing. He thought that the hallucinations were due to a lack of kidney yin energy. Fan decided to take the Luwei pills that the pharmacist recommended to him. But these pills tasted too strange. After using them, the hero felt unwell. It was as if yin energy had flown into his kidneys. The young man's whole body was filled with strength, and he felt a heat. This condition caused him to faint. Soon he came to his senses and saw a strange picture. Around him were familiar buildings floating in the water. He saw himself in the body of a crab. The water temperature was rapidly rising, and the hero was finding it difficult to breathe. A huge spoon began to stir it in this water. Fang Zhang was afraid that he would be boiled. Fortunately, he finally came to his senses. Morning came, and the hero slept through the evening and night. After those pills, his whole body acquired a pungent smell. Fan suggested that the Luwei pills were counterfeit. He decided to get checked and went to the hospital. On the way, the taxi driver told him about the anorectal Dr. Ji Sung. The hero was not interested in this and decided to check yesterday's news. On the news, he saw a monk selling his skin to be eaten. This news was different from others, but still strange. Fan also saw that the hospital building was blocked by the authorities. In the morning, a Taoist monk entered the hospital, most likely to catch a ghost. This is exactly the hospital that the main character goes to. Soon he arrived at the right place. It was quiet and calm near the hospital. The information from the news did not match reality. Fang Zhang was scared by the news, but everything turned out okay. As he entered the hospital grounds, a sheet of manuscript lit up in his hand. This pulsating aura frightened him again. The hero was surrounded by a wave of chi energy. She burst into his pocket, where the scroll of the manuscript was. Fang Zhang realized that he was the only one who could see this. He thought it was a manifestation of possession. Suddenly, a hospital security guard approached him. From his build and shape, Fan realized that he was a soldier. The soldier was interested in the purpose of the hero's arrival. The young man said that he wanted to see Dr. Song Ji. The chief commander allowed the soldier to let the boy see the doctor. Before leaving, Fan asked the soldier about the doctor. I wonder what the doctor did to the man to deal with his anorectal condition. He thought about this fact and decided that he would not go to the doctor's appointment. Fan did not want to enter the hospital, which was cordoned off by authorities. While he was pondering the situation, he was knocked down by a passerby. The man gave him several books as compensation. These were the volumes of The Inviolable Shield, The Warrior's Seal, and The True Body. A passerby asked Fan to hide these books from the police and authorities. Fang Zhang felt that he was unlucky in all respects today. He returned home upset. The manuscript page became bright again, but this time only one rune of text was glowing. In his research, Fan realized that the leaflet was taken from a dead man. So far, the hero didn't understand what to do with this. The book of the true body of the Arhat fell into his hands. When Fan touched the book, the rune on the manuscript glowed again. This glow was fickle and soon disappeared completely. At the same time, a book that a passing merchant handed to Fan lit up. The book was torn from the hero's hands and fell to the floor. She vibrated and Fan felt a strong aura from her. In the radiance, the young man saw the true divine technique. The book's title suddenly changed and gilded font appeared. Fang Zhang began to cultivate according to this updated volume. The technique will allow him to break free from the immortal shackles and become stronger. Using a hormonal surge in his kidneys, Fan achieved an incredible body. In ordinary life, this would have taken him about 50 years. This technique should be practiced only at midday, when the internal heat is at its greatest. Otherwise, an accident will occur. Fan suggested that everything was connected with the gray mark near the hospital. He wants to return to the hospital at night, when there are no people, and check everything. Suddenly he received a call and was offered the chance to live the life of a celebrity for a while. Fan can also meet the goddess Qian. The interlocutor reminded him that he needed to recover after being fired. It turned out that Fan had recently been fired from his job. So far, the hero was not interested in any kind of entertainment. He decided to get down to business and go to the hospital. He called a taxi and a rather expensive car arrived. It was a car of the latest make, costing several million. The taxi driver almost hit the main character. Fan expected a daring young man to arrive. He was angry that the client turned out to be a guy and not a pretty girl. He hoped that the client would refuse the trip. Fan reproached him that taxi drivers cannot have Lamborghinis. He thought that the rich man had gotten a job as a taxi driver specifically to find girls. Fan himself comes from a poor family and has never seen such expensive cars before. He began to examine the car out of curiosity. He pretended to accidentally break the side mirror. At the same time, Fan reproached the taxi driver for his car being too fragile. He checked other parts of the car and easily tore off the wheel. Despite the taxi driver's anger, he dismantled half of the car. With these actions, he wanted to irritate the taxi driver. It was clear that the car did not belong to this man. Fan showed him that he was on the news. There was a news report that a mechanic stole his client's luxury car. The taxi driver realized that he had been exposed. Both he and the machine were covered in devilish energy. He himself looked like a devilish ghost. Fan knew everything from the very beginning and was simply mocking him. The taxi driver was ready to send him to the next world. He wanted to run over Fan, but the car had no steering wheel. The main character managed to take it. The ghost didn't understand how this man had fooled him. Fan was ready to give up the wheel, but only if the ghost himself came to him. He knew that the boy and the machine had become one, and he could not leave her. It's like those who die at sea and exist only with a ghost ship. Those who die in water can only become water spirits. Apartment ghosts can only walk in the apartment. In front of Fan there is the same ghost, but a driver. The ghost realized that in front of him was an awakened Superman. It will be a great experience for a beginner cultivator. He immediately realized that things were bad and decided to leave. He grabbed the steering wheel and pressed down on the pedals. The car drove a couple of meters and stopped. Thanks to the removed wheel, he was unable to escape. The ghost made another attempt to drive away and crashed into the barriers. The car was rushing at high speed and this time it could not stop. It all ended with the car crashing into a wall and catching fire. The taxi driver survived and did not leave his broken car. He hoped that Fang Zhang would leave him alone. But suddenly he saw Fan running towards him with a weapon. The ghost decided that everything would be fine if he pretended to be dead. While he was thinking about this, Fan had already run up to him and pounced. At that moment, the car burst into flames and reflected Fan's blow. The hero felt the incredible energy of the explosion. His attack failed disappointingly. He suffered a serious burn to his hand. The ghost realized that this was an ordinary intelligent person, and not an awakened one. He confessed that he was not a ghost, but a Superman. He was ready for any blow from the young man. When Fan was about to strike the ghost, he took his words back. The taxi driver was just joking that Fan could test his strength. Fan decided to do him a favor and struck him. The impact sent the ghost's car flying upwards. Fan applied the previously learned Arhat true body technique. The ghost almost cried from the shame he had caused. Fan felt an incredible amount of chi energy. She helped him deliver the ultimate powerful blow. The ghost's car immediately fell apart. The ghost couldn't stay close to the machine parts. He flew away from the car, and his end was predictable. Gray chi flew out from the car parts. This is the same energy that Fan saw in the hospital. The sacred scripture on human skin has absorbed chi. This caused the runes on the manuscript to glow. This means that the source of this gray chi is the Superman that Fan killed. The hero decided to find the source of gray chi as soon as possible. First, he left this place so that no one would know his secret. The ghost's fate gave him a warning about keeping the secret of his abilities. Fan ran in different directions to remain unnoticed. He eventually arrived at Zhou City Hospital. He waited here all night, but nothing appeared. He assumed that gray chi had ended up in the hospital by accident. Fan decided to go home to continue cultivating. He wasted the whole night. After killing the ghost, another rune lit up. Now the hero has acquired another opportunity to become stronger. Fan took out the Book of the Golden Seal of the Warrior to improve his battle tactics. This technique is used to fight evil spirits and demons. It is also one of the most secret techniques of Buddhism. It is designed to cultivate 3 tongues of flame in the human body. When the 3 flames burn brightly, chi will prevent evil from entering the body. Fan has a tome for defense and a tome for attack. It seems that the volumes were specially created to combat the evil spirits of extreme events. This world has changed and become more absurd and strange. Fan still doesn't understand whether the racer was a ghost or a superhuman. Fan spent the entire night studying past events and trying out new techniques. By morning, his body and spirit had moved upward. After training, he felt hungry and wanted to go to a restaurant. Suddenly, a student neighbor came out to him. She invited him to have breakfast together. Fan refused and offered to buy something for her at the store. The girl announced the list of products. A friend came out to her and also started begging for food. The hero felt real horror from the girls. He still refused them because of their excessive impudence, but their naked appearance made him nervous. The main character went to the store for food. On the way, he saw a guy sitting on the side of the road in the middle of the day, but now he has no time to worry about others. He needs to take care of filling his tummy. At the restaurant, the manager called his assistant to pay attention to Fan. It is important to him that the main character does not dare to lose even one piece. The manager is going to make Fan bankrupt. The assistant thinks that the visitor will not even have a bone left. Fang Zhang ate the meat with the bones and the crab with the shell. The manager perceived Fan as a starving ghost. He expects the hero to come to them again, and they will close the door in his face. Fan gets this kind of intense hunger after cultivating. The hero has already been blacklisted from all restaurants and cafes in the area. His bad deeds do not justify the cafe blocking his entry. On the way, he saw the guy again, sitting on the side of the road. In the morning, Fan brought him food, and now he finally paid attention to him. This guy definitely has problems because he is very agitated. Fan contacted the police, but they couldn't help him. He assumed that someone was chasing the young man since he was scared. Suddenly, the guy took out his phone and this conversation alarmed him. His mother called him and told him the terrible news. The young man rushed to Fan to save his mother. He reported that a dead woman came to his apartment. This news about the ghost shocked both Fan and the police. They decided to help him in any way they could. Fang Zheng borrowed a scooter from a police officer to go to the police station. This is a good chance for him to find out whether ghosts are the source of chi. He took with him the guy whose mother needed saving. Fan wasn't trying to save anyone. He just wanted to figure out the ghost story. The young man was grateful to Fan for his help. He hugged him, calmed down, and felt safe. Police have seen rescuers like Fan on television many times, but this is the first time they've seen something like this in real life. Soon the scooter arrived at the police station. The area was too far from the young man's apartment. In order not to waste time, Fan decided to rush straight to the apartment. The boy's mother's life could end at any moment. The young man admitted that he believes in ghosts because they are the ones who haunt him. Fan agrees that ghosts do exist. He remembered that he had killed one of them a few days ago. The young man realized that the main character would definitely help him save his mother. He said that strange events and disappearances were happening in the city of Zhou. Fan had already heard that more than 50 people had died on Zhou Bridge. The guy said that it was happening because the bridge was connected to an underground gate. Fang Zhang was angry that his companion was hiding too many secrets. He didn't want to tell Fan what exactly had happened to him. His name is Sun Yushu, and girls have been hanging around him all his life. But he was not interested in them like ordinary young men. These girls were naive, uninteresting, and spoiled. In high school, Sun Yu liked girls who were over 20 years old. In college, he was interested in women over 30. After completing his studies, he cannot contain his passion for 40-year-old women. His parents were constantly setting him up on blind dates. During one date with a girl named Jian, he was shocked. Her mother was Jung Mei, whom he had met previously. Sun went on many unforgettable dates with her. He was in a relationship with both Jian and her mother at the same time. But one day, Jung Mei's drowned body appeared on his autopsy table. The woman crashed on that very bridge and fell into the water. Sun Yushu is a forensic doctor, and it was he who performed her autopsy. He personally performed an autopsy on the man he loves. Fan was curious about what exactly was happening to the Tongjiang Bridge. Sun couldn't tell Fan anything about the events on the bridge. He simply asked for help so that Fan could save his family from the ghost. He was afraid that the dead Jung Mei was haunting him. When night falls in his house, something terrible appears. He hears strange knocks on the door every night. One day these knocks became too persistent. Sun saw someone's eye in the hole. This eye did not move and was bleeding. Sun Yushu guessed that this was someone's prank. He immediately called security, but they found nothing strange. After the guards left, Sun returned to his apartment and heard another knock. Sun Yushu gradually began to go crazy from what was happening. He walked out into the corridor and felt a heavy aura. There was a strange creaking sound of something swinging behind the door. Sun was stunned by what he saw. There was a pair of human eyes hanging on the peephole. At the same time, a colleague called him and said that Sun's mentor had been killed. The killer did not inflict any wounds on him and simply gouged out his eyes. Sun realized that these were the eyes of his mentor. He ran in horror as far away from his room as possible. He entered the elevator, but it didn't move and was stuck on the floor. Sun saw evil spirits approaching him. She was able to open the elevator doors and enter inside. Sun saw that the ghost of the late Jung had come to him. He realized that she had come here to kill him. From then on, he saw her face with frequent frequency. And so he arrived at his home together with Fang Zhang. Fan knocked modestly on the door, afraid that the stranger had deceived him. His hand went numb from the cold, and the young man felt a cold aura. The heroes were overcome with trembling and fear. The smell of death was everywhere, and it was clear that Sun was not lying. Fan smelled rotten fish and earth. It's strange that Sun doesn't smell it. The protagonist did not want to go inside and be used as cannon fodder. Sun's mother did not open the door for a long time, and this worried the young man. Jung Mei's energetic hands appeared at the door. Sun still couldn't smell the fishy smell. The main character was worried about meeting a ghost. And then Sunya's mother appeared in the doorway, not alarmed by anything. Sun told her to go inside and obey him in everything. Jung Mei was standing next to her, and the fishy smell was coming from her. This may be due to the fact that the woman's body lay in the sea for a long time. Fan knows he is the only one who can feel it. He found it strange that Jung had not done any harm to Sun's mother. Sun's mother greeted the guest her son had warned her about. Fan asked Sun about his next steps, but he himself didn't know what to do. The hero realized that the young man did not tell his mother about Jung Mei's death. In his mother's eyes, Jung is still a living person. She suggested that everyone have dinner together with Jung's dishes. Sun didn't understand why his mother didn't perceive Jung as a ghost. Hearing about the guests, Jung promised to make fish soup. She obediently went to the kitchen to please the guests. Both Sun and Fang were reluctant to participate in the dinner with the dead man. It was all too strange that a ghost was cooking food. But suddenly Jung Mei stopped cooking and stared at Fan. The heroes need to do something as soon as possible. Sun's mother started talking about Sun and Jian getting married. She wanted to get closer to her thrifty mother-in-law. Soon Jung Mei served the food. The entire table was covered with various dishes of delicious-smelling fish. But this smell mixes with the stench of the dead and spoils the appetite. Fan thought about various outcomes, but certainly not about dining with a dead man. They say that you can't eat the food of a deceased person unless he was a close relative. This woman is trying to use this method against Fan and Sun. Fan could fight her, but in this small apartment he could hurt Sun and his mother. Sun's mother insisted that the guests try all of Aunt May's dishes. Fan played along and decided to join in the dinner. He pounced on the dishes before everyone else and began to eat one after another. Song thought that Jung had completely taken over Fan and was afraid that he too would not escape it. But to save his mother, he is ready to do whatever is required. He pounced on the food, but Fan did not let him eat. He himself ate everything that Song took from the table. In a matter of minutes, the table was completely empty. The hero asked Mei to prepare more food for the others. Sun tries to reason with Fan not to do this. He is afraid that because of Fan, they will not be able to survive. Ghost Mei obeyed the young man and went to cook food for him. This was repeated several more times. One Fan ate all the dishes without giving the others even a bite. Jung Mei became very tired of cooking and stopped the process. She regretted agreeing to dinner. Song was still thinking about how to avoid the consequences of this meeting with the ghost. He was embarrassed that the horror had turned into a culinary evening. He reminded his mother that she was not eating fish after choking on it. But he noted that today their house is full of different types of fish. The clock struck midnight, and it was time for ghosts and evil spirits. Aunt Mei felt ill and fell to her knees. Fan promised her that she would take a break from cooking now. He concentrated all his energy in his hand to deliver the first and last blow. Jung Mei realized that in front of her was someone who could kill her. Fan struck her and pierced her spiritual body. Immediately, strange things began to happen to the ghost. Several kilograms of fish came out of Mei's body. After this, the ghost turned into chi energy. With her help, Fan regained his strength. As he thought, the gray chi came from these ghosts. The hero realized that the fish was from Jung Mei's mouth. He instantly felt sick that he had eaten this ghost fish. He cleared his stomach, even though the body's protective aura had absorbed the poison. Song brought Fan to Mei's house, but there was no smell of fish there. It seems that Jung has not come here since her death. For his help, Sun gave the hero a bank card with 60,000 yuan. Fan accepted compensation for psychological trauma after eating fish. The hero continued his search for the source of gray chi. He saw news on the internet about abnormalities at Zhou Hospital. He went there to check everything immediately. At the entrance to the hospital, he found a thread of gray chi. In a short period of time, he managed to replenish his energy reserves. It looks like this hospital will bring the hero a lot of chi. He plans to spend the day observing this place. He needs to obtain as much chi energy as possible to increase his cultivation. Throughout the night, Fan did not detect any more gray chi. He expected this, because he considers himself unlucky. He was glad that he had at least confirmed that the gray chi came from ghosts. He noticed something strange. The guards at the hospital looked like soldiers. Zhou City Hospital is hiding some secrets from people. There may be an agency in town that deals with supernatural events. For example, it could be a bureau for investigating special situations. Sun Yushu called the hero and told him that people had died again. The experts who autopsied the bodies of those killed on the bridge were killed. The bodies of the doctors were divided in half, and their internal organs were removed. About 4 people involved in the bridge victims' case have died. The Jung Mei case was just the beginning of this whole story. Sun reported that soldiers came and took away the bodies of the bridge victims. After them, other people came and began asking about the strange events. Sun did not tell them the ghost story and the story about Fang Zhang. Fan realized that the authorities had been in control of the situation for a long time. He asked Sun not to communicate with him while he was under the control of the authorities. He himself decided to prepare for the unrest that would soon begin. He went home to continue studying the techniques. He remembered the book of the inviolable golden shield. During the training process, the golden shield transformed into the golden mock shield. This is a powerful defensive technique for becoming a cultivator. Once the technique is learned, the golden bell will cover and protect the entire body. Right now, he has finished training in attack and defense techniques. From this day on, he will have a basic ability to defend himself. Fan can come face to face with an opponent who is holding a weapon. Now he only lacks a weapon, although he needed it when he met Mei. Then he wouldn't have to feel so empty and scared. He found a lot of strange advice on choosing a weapon on the internet. For example, an anti-flirting needle will help in the battle with a demonic seducer. One man advised Fan to find a butcher's knife. This good weapon will kill any ghost with ease. Fan set himself the goal of finding the butcher's knife. In the future, he plans to get a blade from a guillotine. At night, Fan went to the night market to buy a knife. At the old man Wang's sales point, he put on a real show. He took one of the best knives and chopped up the vegetables in front of the auctioneers. This performance brought old man Wang a good income. In the morning, he met with Wang, who was grateful to him for the night. As a token of gratitude, Fan asked him about the butchers. But suddenly he saw something strange. The boys from old man Wang's shop are washing money in a basin of water. It sounded like a money laundering phrase. The strange events of recent days have driven people crazy. Van told a story about a guy whose hands started bleeding after receiving money. He counted the money until his hands began to bleed. Traders found their hands stained with blood after touching the money. It is as if the money touched the blood of a dead person who is greatly offended. In recent days, Fan has encountered a third unnatural event. Van was afraid that he too would go crazy because of these events. This time, he decided to end this conversation and got down to business. He asked Fan to come to the market in the morning to meet the butcher. Among these people, the hero needs to find the butcher Jiangzu. Fan found the right person according to the description of Old Man Wang. Jiangzu looks more like a fitness trainer than a butcher. The main character didn't think that this man would help him. When he wanted to ask for help, a girl climbed in front of him. She wanted to buy meat for her sick mother. Fan didn't understand why such a small child was going shopping alone. Suddenly, the girl apologized and let Fan go ahead. Her good manners made the hero feel uncomfortable. Fan decided to help her and bought the best meat for her. The girl offered him money, but he did not take it. Fan made this kind gesture for the sake of her mother's recovery. The girl burst into tears and said that she couldn't steal it because she was very well-mannered. Fan made concessions and took some money. The girl was grateful to him for his help. When she ran home, Fan felt that this girl was strange. He wanted to help her get home safely. Suddenly, he felt that his hands were wet. There was blood on them after touching the money. Wang said the money was stained with the blood of the dead who were wronged. Fan decided to test this theory. Those who died cannot suppress their obsession with money. The girl ran several streets. On the road, she behaved carefully, as her mother taught her. But suddenly, a large van flew out towards her. The driver stopped in time and avoided tragic consequences. The girl apologized to him several times before leaving. Fan watched as she walked carefully between the cars. With every step, she stopped passing cars. Fanu found her behavior very strange. He wanted to accompany her, but the girl met with Grandma Shu. The grandmother did not see her off and simply thanked her for taking care of her mother. The main character accompanied the girl all the way home. When the girl opened the door of the house, something terrible appeared. It was a manifestation of a ghost that Fan was already familiar with. It seemed like only Fan could see it. He carefully peered around the door and became alarmed. Behind him was one of the ghosts. He reached out to the hero, terrifying him. Fan immediately felt a bitter cold. It was not a ghost, but an officer evacuating people. They came here because all members of the family were killed. Fan heard from them that it was a series of murders. Fan realized he was possessed by a ghost when he entered the house. He suggested that these people were investigators of supernatural matters. Suddenly, he noticed that a thread of gray chi flew past the policeman. Ki energy flew into his rune scroll. Fong never thought that it would be so easy to obtain gray chi. In less than a minute, he received 3 beams of energy. One of the residents told the police that the girl walked through the door yesterday. He had previously encountered transparent people in this same corridor. Fan knew from the very beginning that the girl was already dead. He met only her ghost. What he saw on the road were the happiest moments of her life. Fan wonders what this creature experienced in its last minutes. He was angry that the world was full of secrets. Fang Zheng was summoned to the station to assist with the investigation. In the crowd that was at the crime scene, he saw a butcher. Jiangzu looked like he knew what had happened. He didn't talk to him and went to the police station. In the interrogation room, he met a female police officer. This is Wei Yuan, who lives next door to Fan. She was interested in what strange things Fan had encountered lately. It was important to her what kind of meat Fan bought from the butcher. Fan wanted to know about the fate of that girl, but everything was hidden by the investigation. Wei asked the hero not to complicate her investigation. Wei investigates a number of missing persons cases. All these people were reading supernatural novels before they went missing. Wei asked the hero to make a list of such novels to get closer to the solution. For these purposes, Fan asked her for a phone number to contact him. It all seemed like Fan just wanted to get Wei's attention. After the police station, the hero moved on. The bus took him to the Jufa farmer's market. The hero saw the same butcher Jiangzu. A little boy came to him, sent by his mother for meat. Mom drew on his body the parts that needed to be bought. The boy took off his pants and showed the marks his father left. The butcher modestly refused him this purchase. He sold only the parts of the pig that he had. This child seemed very impudent to Fan for his age. He insulted Fan without any reason. The hero decided to ignore it. He explained to him that he would change depending on what he ate. Fana was interested in what the boy would become when he ate pork. The boy almost cried that he would become a pig. He became alarmed and decided to leave this strange man. Fan went to the butcher to buy a knife from him. Jiangzu had already prepared a special blade for him. This knife will help in killing ghosts and training the spirit. As soon as Fan took out the knife, his body felt a drop in temperature. The hero got hold of a blade that had already cut off the heads of 40 men. Butcher Jiangzu considered this knife a defect. The blade has been around for a long time and only half of it remains. The master offered a price of 60,000 wen for it. Fong realized that Jiangzu was familiar with Sui Yushu. He named the exact amount that was on the gift card. Fan took the blade and began training with it. Hours of training have brought results. The blade not only received an improvement, but also became whole. But suddenly there was an explosion of ghostly chi. The blade became covered with devilish energy, and evil spirits flew out of it. It was a headless ghost that was definitely a victim of that blade. Chains flew out of the knife, binding the ghost. It turns out that the headless ghost is chained to a blade that cuts off heads. Fan realized that he was not a ghost. The head-splitting blade has killed many people. He simply expresses the resentment of those lost lives. A total of about 9 offended spirits appeared above Fan. The hero did not understand what they wanted to get from him. Suddenly there was an explosion and the souls disappeared. The blade burst into a bright flame for 9 seconds. But the burning must be long, because the knife killed 40 souls, not 9. Fan planned to get a weapon upgrade soon. But the hero's plans are constantly changing due to the events of this world. His cultivation training does not yield much result. Fan lacks gray chi and blood. Qi and blood support his body with what is needed for cultivation. Fan decided to rely on outside aid to make up the shortfall. He came to the pharmacy to buy medicine to replenish blood and qi. Behind the cash register was the daughter of the boss of the city's pharmacies, Little Shui. Her father, Old Man John, used to work in this pharmacy. Fan asked Shui to advise him on the necessary medicines. Shu didn't like his tone and became angry. Fan realized that something was wrong here. It looked like Shu and Fang were fighting for no reason. Shu nervously advised the hero to use donkey skin to restore blood. It is a powerful aphrodisiac. Fan felt like the schoolgirl mistook him for a pervert. Zhu's gaze pierced Fan's heart. He hadn't felt such intense shame in a long time. When he was given the medication, Fan felt even more awkward. These medicines replenish women's blood and energy after difficult days. The hero explained to Zhui that he needed medicine for men. He was angry that he was given gynecological drugs. Zhu continued to recommend medicines to restore women's blood. Fan, in anger, began throwing all the medicines in the pharmacy. Shu handed him the donkey skin gelatin. She found it funny that the hero was buying it for himself. Fan lied that his girlfriend needed these medications. The pharmacist explained that previous Lue tablets were also for women. Fan remembered that he had a yin deficiency in his kidneys and asked for a pack of Lue. He has been purchasing it for a long time to restore his strength. At night, he is tormented by hallucinations because his body is weak. Fan realized that it was this girl who sold him a fake that did not help. He didn't start a conflict with her. For now, she helps him out with medications that help with cultivation. Soon, Fengshuo won't need this. He hoped that donkey gelatin would help him recover this time. He was afraid that he would experience side effects again. For the sake of the great cup of breakthrough and self-improvement, he is ready to risk everything. He combined gelatin and a scroll with runes. Immediately, the donkey's gelatin was filled with healing energy. Fan was ready to suffer to achieve the result. After drinking gelatin, he should feel energized and healthy. As expected, the hero's entire body was filled with blood and gray chi. The limit of cultivation was finally broken through. The hero took the 2 outermost runes to raise his tone and help with cultivation. He successfully completed the blood restoration cycle 9 times. He attained the Golden Immune Arhat, that is, the highest level of enlightenment. His body now has a golden mana immune shield. This must be what everyone calls a miraculous achievement. This power has a high rank. In previous times, strength did not help Fan resist the dead food and the infernal machine. Fan no longer has any upgrade runes. He wants to replenish his savings as soon as possible. He called Sun Yushu from the Supernatural Investigation Bureau. He had a special request for him. The time for ghost activity was already approaching. Fan wanted to get information about the headquarters of the Investigation Bureau. But it turned out that their activities were hidden from prying eyes. Suddenly, Sun remembered one remarkable detail of the whole story. Yesterday, he overheard a conversation between the employees of this bureau. They talked about plans to forcibly clear the bridge. All strange events are connected with this bridge. On the news, Fan saw that these people were going to block the stream. Fan thought they wanted to clear the stream of sediment. They seem obsessed with thoroughly examining the bridge situation. The hero didn't understand why they were spending so much effort on this. He assumed that these people would attack whatever was on that bridge. Suddenly, the neighboring students called him. It was already late at night and they were very scared. They asked Fan to take them home. They won't get there on their own because they're afraid to even go outside. It wasn't a brazen request, so Fan decided to help them. They sent him their location. The hero saw that it was located near the Tongjiang Bridge. He had to travel a long way to arrive at this place. The chain of terrible events on the bridge still causes panic in the hearts of people. Even e-taxis refuse to cross the bridge at night. Suddenly, Fan was called out by a passerby who wanted to go to Graves Hill. The man's face was bloody and black. When he started speaking, black energy came out of his mouth. The The hero became alarmed when a third person approached them. The man insisted that Fan show him the way to Graveshill. Another passerby warned Fan not to encounter the dead. According to him, everything supernatural wants to steal chi from him. The man kept asking for directions. Fan was worried about this and he went over to the safe guy. He was afraid that the dead man would steal his strength and energy. The young man explained that every person has 3 fires of protection. If Fan doesn't answer the evil spirit's question, or doesn't extinguish his flame, then everything will be fine. The ghosts simply won't be able to do anything to him. This guy is willing to do whatever it takes to help Fan. To fight the ghosts, he needs to take his magical weapon. The heroes went to get weapons, and on the way Fan found out the necessary information. He was interested in how to exorcise a ghost from a possessed person. The guy mentioned the government of the underworld. Fan didn't understand anything about this whole story. He felt a negative aura around him. He realized that the ghost was misleading him. He dealt the guy a powerful blow and cut him into 2 pieces. After that, he used the Golden Warrior Exorcist technique. All this time, the ghost was disguised as an ordinary person. Fan destroyed him with his abilities, but he felt a heavy aura behind him. It was that old strange ghost. The old man stabbed Fan in the back. Luckily, the hero's golden immune shield worked. This blow was able to break through 6 of the 10 layers of the shield. The main character needs to quickly strike back to avoid dying. He pulled out his energy blade in time. The old man's ghost realized that this man was capable of killing him. He couldn't withstand Fan's powerful attack. With his first blow, the hero cut off his limb. Fan immediately prepared the Golden Warrior's Seal of Exorcism. This technique was supposed to kill the deceased forever. But at the moment of the attack, an electric shock appeared, which repelled Fan from the ghost. There was an explosion, and it was clear that the ghost was killed. But suddenly the crippled ghost emerged from the flames and attacked Fan. He reproached him for not being very experienced in cultivation. In fact, the hero already knew that he had won. The ghost was engulfed in energy flames again. He realized that Fan's body was protected by mystical fire. Fan dealt the final blow and laid the old man's soul to rest. Before dying, the ghost thanked him for this. Fan immediately received a thread of gray chi. After that, he found himself at the local bus stop. Fan was drawn into the ghost's vision again. He already realized that he was possessed by a ghost. He discovered this when the distance between the road and the stop decreased. There was a corpse lying on the road, cut in half. Due to strong resentment, this corpse can produce an evil spirit from each half of the body. In the future, the hero needs to be more careful with such a strong ghost. From the 2 halves, Fan received chi as for 2 different ghosts. He did not show joy so that no one would expose his abilities. The hero remembered that 2 beautiful students were waiting for his help. He arrived at the designated place, but it was full of people and police officers. The voices of frightened female students were heard from the crowd. They were grateful to Fan for his help. It seemed they did it to get Fan's attention. The hero stood firm against them, because it was important for him to understand what had happened. The girls said they visited a carnival and went to a house of horrors. In the haunted house, they saw 3 murdered people. They were hanged on iron hooks, and blood was constantly dripping from them. At first, they thought it was a realistic prop. They were absolutely calm, and nothing foreshadowed trouble. One of the visitors wanted to lead them to the exit, to safety. He assured them that he was not afraid of anything from the world of mysticism. But when he approached the props, he was scared to death. The doll came to life and asked the guy to get her out of this body. The visitors realized that this was a real living corpse. The students hid and were afraid to come out of hiding until Fan arrived. Fan felt the presence of a strong ghostly chi. The police stopped the carnival and escorted the visitors out. But Fan noticed that strange people were heading inside the house with horrors. He thought it was a group that investigated supernatural matters. He had no doubt that there was mysticism here, since Grey Chi had flown to him. Van pretended not to be interested in what was happening, and began to lead his friends away. The girl from the bureau immediately noticed him. As a token of gratitude, he asked them to invite him to dinner. Deep down, he was worried that the woman looked at him angrily. He realized that there were still many secrets in this world that he didn't even know about. The main character went home. Workers work overtime all night to finish the job. They are advancing quickly, and have almost finished destroying the bridge. The violent purge plan will likely be completed within a couple of days. The relevant authorities want to thoroughly investigate the incident on the bridge and resolve any issues. Fan arrived home and called the delivery service. Last time he bought Buddhist volumes and was worried about it. This time, he deliberately purchased different types of volumes from the internet. After an hour, he realized that all the improvements could not be achieved. He suggested that Buddhist and Taoist tomes could not be combined with cultivation skills. He needs to gather more Grey Chi before he can improve his skills. Fong Chong would like to fix this problem in the near future. He had the manuscripts of tendon and brain transformation, and the divine power of the Nine Yang. With the help of these books, he reached the last rune. Fan didn't know which of the 4 volumes he should choose to study. If he doesn't learn the Blade Tome, then upgrading the blade will be a waste of time. To improve skills, the hero needs to find more Grey Chi. With the help of previous books, he improved the blade to only the first level. These were 3 completely different techniques that complemented each other perfectly. The new volumes did not interact with each other and were divided into many parts. The main character will have to spend a lot of time to find the full version of the volumes. He deliberately chose these books from different sects, but in the end, they all belonged to Buddhism. Several days passed, workers tried to restore the bridge, but suddenly the lights on the bridge came on. The workers pumped out the water and the river dam was ready. The soldiers announced that all roads leading to the bridge were blocked. Entry is prohibited for any vehicle. Operation leader Captain Shane ordered the tractor to dig into the river. He assumed that the other half of the body should be buried in this part of the river. His team needs to dig up this body before 10 o'clock in the evening. Captain Shane was informed that the other squads also had no results. The captain was worried about the origin of these 2 parts of the corpse. He suggested that there might be 2 tombs built by ancient people under the river. He doesn't believe that these are ordinary corpses cut in half. Superstition holds that those who are cut in half cannot swallow their last breath. That is why they are the most touchy and can easily become evil spirits after death. To avoid becoming evil spirits, people usually did not bury the 2 halves of a corpse together. This was to break the resentment of the corpses and prevent them from turning into evil spirits. Captain Shane knew that the dismembered bodies would lead to more vicious evil spirits. According to legend, bodies were not buried near streams and rivers. Those who were buried in this way will certainly show their indignation after death. The soldiers assumed that this was why the bridge collapsed and the deaths occurred. Shane was informed that a road had been discovered under the river that led to the buildings. The soldiers decided to test her. Another team on the other bank also discovered this path. The captain ordered his subordinates to find out about their successes. For now, all the military personnel were busy surveying the road. There was no water here at all, although the area is located under a river. There were stone buildings everywhere, and 2 of them remained in excellent condition. The shape of these houses is a bit strange. There are no windows and only 1 door. The captain ordered his subordinates to search these strange houses. The leader saw that the door of the house was made of bronze. Ancient people used bronze as a container for sacrifices. The captain looked at the door and saw strange drawings on it. The door depicted a man cut in half. It felt like the drawing was fresh, and that the person had been cut up quite recently. He was then tightly sealed into 2 coffins. The captain saw that the coffin lids were nailed shut, and the man had suffocated. It was unclear what force this man had offended to be subjected to such punishment. The captain couldn't solve this riddle and asked the soldiers for a radio. He also ordered his subordinates to be ready to open this door. He was informed that another detachment had discovered the same thing. The leader realized that the houses face not north and south, but east and west. There is a saying that when the doors face south, the descendants will prosper. When the doors face east, the tears will be endless. There are rumors that newborns cry because they are scared of things that others cannot see. The captain suggested that these houses were not intended for the people who built the tomb. Suddenly another squad interrupted his thoughts and reported a discovery. When Captain Shane answered, the radio went silent. For a long time there was no answer, and the radio simply vibrated. The soldier leader heard strange knocking sounds coming from inside. He didn't know what the sound was, but suddenly there was a danger signal over the radio. The captain ordered his squad to flee immediately. He was worried that old Jan wouldn't be able to cope, despite his abilities. He himself did not want to take any risks, and ordered the soldiers to return to the shore. He was informed that another team had entered the house and had not returned. But it was too late, as Captain Shane opened the doors. He ordered half of the squad to go inside. There was a dead energy all over the building. The soldiers thought it was fog, which was uncharacteristic for the river. Captain Shane suddenly heard the same knocks. These knocks belonged to the evil spirits that appeared to the captain. Shane immediately went crazy and the evil spirits attacked him. Meanwhile, the main character visited the buffet. The cafe owners were worried that this customer had eaten all their food. Fang Zhang needed to recuperate. During lunch, his phone rang sharply. It was Sun who announced that the bridge would be cleared this evening. He heard the first soldiers go under the bridge and disappear. Fan was afraid that even the experts from the Bureau of Investigation would not be able to handle the dangerous bridge. He told Sun to sit still and not agree to cooperate with his colleagues. He himself did not understand whether it was worth it for him to go to this dangerous place. His priority was to collect as much Grey Chi as possible to consecrate the runes. He decided to just walk around the area around the bridge and not go inside. A sportswoman was driving past the bridge that evening. Suddenly she stopped and felt a burning cold. She thought that there was a man behind her who was blowing on her. When she looked around, she realized that there was no one around. She concluded that she was simply scaring herself. She drove on and saw a boy playing ball. It was strange that the boy was playing with a ball in the middle of the night. When the girl asked him a question about his parents, the boy grabbed the ball and ran away. The girl thought that this child was too strange. She decided to forget about him and move on. She came across the boy again, who continued kicking his ball. The girl approached him again to ask about his parents. She wanted to help him find his home so he wouldn't get lost. But the boy grabbed his ball again and ran away. The heroine thought that she had said something wrong and offended the child. She decided to forget this story and went home. When she drove back, she saw the boy again. The boy didn't talk to her and just kicked the ball against the wall. But suddenly his ball and his whole body were covered in a black aura. The girl was very scared and went home. At that moment, she wanted to be home as soon as possible. But the boy followed her and suggested playing ball together. After these words, the girl's life came to an abrupt end. The main character was riding nearby and suddenly noticed her bicycle. He smelled wet earth and dead fish. He stopped and saw the same boy. The boy did not run away from Fangjang. He stood next to the body of that unfortunate girl. The ghost boy also invited Fan to play with him. Fan realized that it was a dead man and struck him. He hit the boy's body and a ghost appeared. Fan invited the boy to play with his magical technique. It was the seal of the Golden Warrior, the devil exorcising seal. It was with her help that Fan killed the ghost. For this, he immediately received 1 gray chi. It turned out that he recognized the ghost, thanks to the smell of rotten fish. The hero assumed that this was one of the victims of the fallen bridge. However, this does not justify the boy for harming an innocent person. Fan decided to call the police for the girl's sake and report what had happened. But it was already too late, because someone else arrived to see him. Fan needs to hide immediately to avoid arousing suspicion. But it wasn't a policeman, it was Flash. Fangjang didn't understand what was going on and was afraid of any conversation with him. This guy got here too fast. In the current situation, Fan has no evidence. He won't be able to explain to people that he didn't commit the murder. There was a minute's pause between the two heroes. At that very moment, a car with colleagues arrived at Flash's place. The young man was reproached for arriving at the crime scene before the team. Apparently these people were from some bureau or something like that. They were perplexed when they saw Fan next to the murdered girl. Naturally, they assumed that he was the killer. The hero was afraid that he would not be able to explain to them his presence in this situation. He didn't know what to do, but the investigators decided everything for him. They found that it was full of ghostly chi. They had a special compass which told them that the girl was killed by a ghost. The hero was grateful to these people that they did not accuse him of murder. He took the girl with the compass for an angel. Flash thought that Fan had awakened his body on the night of the blue moon, just like them. The protagonist realized that these were superhumans, who were talked about in every alley. From these people, Fan heard that this ghost was of the heavenly dog level. Flash perceived Fan as a master who destroyed such a powerful ghost. He was sure that it was one of them in front of him. Fan was afraid to reveal that he was not a member of their big team. These people decided to bury the body nearby and move on. They invited the protagonist to go with them to the Tongjiang Bridge. Fan had a bad feeling and couldn't refuse. He decided that it was safer to go to the bridge in a group than alone. However, he is afraid that these people will reveal his secret. At the entrance to the bridge, medics carried out the bodies of dead soldiers. Most likely these people are awakened superhumans. Fan realized that something significant had happened. He wanted to get out of here as soon as possible, because he could easily be exposed. Suddenly he saw several threads of chi energy. His reserves of gray chi increased by 2. Fan immediately decided not to leave. Deep down, an inner voice told him that he needed to run away. Fan now felt like he had joined a pack of wolves that were looking only at him. If he stays here for even an hour, he will be immediately exposed. But suddenly Fan saw a huge master next to him. The man immediately looked at him suspiciously. Fortunately, he didn't notice anything unusual. The hero thought that these people could see Chi and his theft. But it turned out that Fan's team was also confused by this huge man. They decided that it was a 5th-level deity. I immediately became interested in what level Fan belonged to. Suddenly he received another gray chi from the soldier's corpse. He realized that this place was a treasure trove of experience. One of the rescuers announced the assembly of the students. Fan realized that he would be exposed during the roll call. Fan's team left, and the hero also needed to go to some instructor. The instructors asked the students if anyone could defeat the heavenly dog. It was that huge man who was willing to take on the challenge of newcomers. A person of this level must immediately go down to the riverbed together with the master. This lucky guy gets to spend 12 hours on blessed land. Fan realized that this land was a temptation for those who had awakened. An hour's training here is equivalent to 2 days training elsewhere. Everyone here has only been training for a couple of days. If they seize the chance, they can improve in an instant. Flash insisted that Fang Jiang enroll with them. Everyone who wanted to immediately raised their hand and announced their abilities. All of them were deities of different levels. The instructor said that others could only reach the second level of deity after a month. This situation will force beginners to train harder. The instructor asked the crowd one last time if there were any more awakened ones. He heard someone talking about a man who was able to defeat the heavenly dog. This was a conversation between Flash and Fan. The whole crowd turned their attention to Fan, who was trying to hide. The main character was angry at Flash, who revealed his abilities. He raised his hand and announced that he would no longer hide. The master asked him about the number of murders. Fan recalled the many murders over the past few days. He lied when he said he only killed one little ghost. The instructor began to suspect something in Fan's words. However, there was no time because the situation on the bridge was too tense. He ordered Fan to be brought to him and announced the beginning of the descent to the bridge. Fan thought this mission would be dangerous, but everything was calm. The closer they got to the river bottom, the thicker the fog became. Fan thought this was something strange. They explained to him that after the blue moon, spiritual energy began to thicken. All of these people were able to achieve their level in just 2 months of training. The hero thought that everything that happened was due to the revival of spiritual energy. He, along with everyone else, woke up after the appearance of the huge moon. The instructors believed that they could become the best in just 2 months. Fan thought that he did not belong to the awakened ones, and that he had no special features. One of the students said that the blue moon will definitely descend for the second time. Fan realized that it was the moon that began to revive spiritual energy 10 years ago. That's why there are so many veterans in the Bureau of Investigation. The young man thought that superhumans were omnipotent from the very beginning. He pondered what he had heard for a long time, but suddenly there was an explosion. Both students and instructors were excited about what was happening. They didn't understand where this explosion came from. The explosion caused powerful shockwaves to appear from the ground. Fan's inner voice told him that something terrible was about to happen. Fan wanted to warn everyone to get back, but he didn't have time. The dam upstream burst and water appeared. Many immediately started running. They realized that the dots were caused by water rushing into the river. Fan's team didn't know what to do. Suddenly the main character saw something in the fog. There was a flash of light at the bottom of the river. It was a thread of gray chi. She immediately flew into Fan's piggy bank. Several more threads followed. At this moment the hero received a few more threads. This continued several times. Fan broke his record for collecting 4 runes at once. Suddenly something approached the people. These were the ones who went down to the riverbed. They were newcomers, but one of them disappeared. Survivors said the dam was destroyed by a mad undead king. Everyone was warned that the water was about to reach them. While everyone was running away, Fan finally figured out the situation. The undead king who lay at the bottom cultivated to become a drought demon. People initially wanted to open the coffin in an attempt to destroy his body. However, this action only gave the undead king the opportunity to escape from the river. A team of experts was hot on the king's trail. The 2 halves of the undead king went mad, and the king left the lower half of his body. The upper half of the body used this chance to escape from the dam area. The lower half of the undead king ran towards the dam, leaving behind his pursuers. And so the river began to fill with a stream. People were afraid that those who went down to the riverbed would die, but suddenly one of them saw people running from below. And yet, everyone was able to escape from this situation. The water filled the entire space more and more. People had a few seconds to save themselves. Luckily, everyone got out of there alive. These bureau members were able to escape from the 2 maddened halves of the spirit. The protagonist knew from the very beginning that there were plenty of experts here. He decided to take advantage of the chance to escape, while no one was paying attention to him. At that very moment, he simply evaporated. Fan went home to check his runes. It was already late evening, and all the neighbors were asleep. However, 2 young students were sorting something out between themselves. These night owls, as always, make noise instead of wanting to sleep. The main character was calm that they had forgotten that terrible situation in the park. He called the elevator and arrived at his floor. The elevator doors opened and the hero saw a beauty. It was his neighbor, Officer Wei. She had to work until midnight again. The protagonist decided not to talk to her and wanted to enter the apartment. We thanked him for the list of stories he had compiled for her. Fan was pleased to cooperate with the police in this strange story. He reproached her for not taking care of herself and staying late at work. Wei promised to listen to his words after the case was completed. The neighbors dispersed, and each went to his own room. The hero had a few hours before bed to train. He calculated that he had only 10 runes. Fan was grateful that he had taken the risk and gone to Tongjiang Bridge. But it seemed strange to him that for 30 people he received only 5 runes. For his purposes, He wanted to use medicines for blood and bone marrow. In the near future, he wants to gain skills in fighting dirty ghosts. To achieve this, the spirit, chi energy and mind must acquire their abilities. For all these purposes, it is not enough to have just 10 runes. Fan decided not to sleep that night and improved the blood medicine. With this medicine, he will improve his body and prevent cough. When he drank the medicine, his whole body became engulfed in flames. Maha's golden immune shield has reached level 12. The shield, after being fully upgraded, takes the form of a bell and a membrane. The bell uses a lot of energy but has no blind spots. The hero needs to maintain the amount of chi and blood in order to use it. The membrane has blind spots at head level, but energy consumption is low. Fan can maintain this form for a long time. The power of the membrane form is slightly lower than the power of the bell. The hero decided to practice the technique of the divine power of the 9 yangs. However, this technique can only be practiced during the day when energy is available. The hero knew this, but still decided to start training at night. His attempts always ended in failure. He decided to move on to updating the volume he had already improved. Suddenly, a bold idea came into the hero's head. He decided to manually copy the volume and then update both the copy and the original. After some time, he managed to achieve his goal. He copied the volume, and now he just needs to update that copy. He enhanced the copy of the tome with several runes. The improvement was completed successfully. Now the golden immunity shield of Mach has a 2nd level. Previously, the hero had 12 layers, which now doubles. Fan was thinking about the 3rd and 4th improvements. For the next 4 days, he devoted himself entirely to cultivation. Suddenly, he received a call from a friend who was worried about his condition after the dam burst. The hero was worried that all these people were hiding what was happening from society. He suggested that there was a special bureau that dealt with these issues. The hero decided to devote his free time to browsing the forum and news. The news said that mummies in Africa had come back to life. In addition, Fan read that the ruins in Greece were sealed by the military. This news interested the young man, but they suddenly disappeared. This happened again and again. Eventually, Fan managed to read this strange news. He realized that the situation in the world had become much worse. News has emerged that travel agencies are evacuating citizens and ceasing operations. A photograph was also attached to this news item. In this photo, Fan recognized the people from the Bureau of Supernatural Investigations. These people are involved in the issues of Greek temple ruins and tourism activities. Fan was angry that everything secret was hidden, even from him. He decided not to bother and focus on his abilities. Suddenly, a great warlike elder wrote to him. He reported that he had found the spiritual martial arts manuscript that Fan was looking for. He asked the young man to confirm that he really needed this manuscript. After all the confirmations, he said that he would send the manuscript today. Immediately, the main character saw the news that the Tongjiang Bridge had resumed operation. It appears that the bridge is completely cleared and safe for people. Fan decided to take a ride near the bridge to see for himself. He did not see a single person from the Bureau of Investigation in the area of the bridge. The radio silence suggests that these major events on the bridge did not take place. This may be the work of the Bureau of Supernatural Investigations. Strange events often happened inside the city, so much so that an undead king even appeared. Fan was interested in the state of affairs in remote villages outside the city. Earlier, he read the news that a woman was found there in an unknown coffin. It was the bride, and no one knows how she died. Fan planned to go to this village if he had a chance. Suddenly, the same friend called him. He again invited Fan to visit the filming location. This place is located high in the mountains, and the hero became interested in it. It turns out that 2 events could lead him straight to the mountains. A couple of days ago, Fan had already agreed to go with his friend to the filming to support him. To do this, he will have to travel by bus from early morning until late evening. Meanwhile, Wei read about 7, whose family bore a serial number in their surname. One day he returned home and found a book about feng shui. After reading it, he suffered from misfortunes and dangerous situations for a year. The first misfortunes that befell him were curses from Asia. He dated an Asian girl who almost killed him. This was another scary story that Wei read. She sat in the library at night and read stories that Fan recommended. She wanted to catch the criminal who was killing innocent people. She spends every evening here during the week. Every day she reads one story and waits for the criminal to appear. There has been no progress in the case in all these days. Wei realized that her assumption might be wrong. Meanwhile, the main character returned to his home. He felt unwell from the surrounding atmosphere. Suddenly, a thread of gray chi flew into his piggy bank. That same evening, one of the city's residents stayed late at work. She often stayed late, but today everything seemed scary to her. The disturbing silence frightened her. After all the events in the city, the girl was afraid of any rustle. She tried to stop her wild imagination. She kept feeling like there was someone hiding in the corridor. She had the feeling that icy eyes were looking at her. She gathered her strength and stopped scaring herself. Suddenly, her ears distinctly heard the sound of footsteps. Then the girl became seriously worried. These steps came from the empty corridor. In desperation, the girl assumed that these were colleagues who had stayed late at work. She also had hope that they were security guards inspecting the building. When she reached the door, the sound stopped. The girl felt like she was in her worst nightmare. She regretted taking this night job. There were only 5 minutes left until the end of the work shift. With each passing minute, the sounds became louder and louder. It seemed to the girl that they were gradually approaching her. She wanted to serve out the allotted time and run home. She spoke to the source of the sound, but no one answered her. The sounds disappeared and then reappeared. The girl assumed that this was a joke by her colleagues. But then, working hours were over, and the heroine went home. She ran down the corridor as fast as she could. The corridor was quiet, but there was an eerie chill. The girl planned to leave the building and never return. While the stomping stopped, she went into the dressing room to pick up her things. When she left, the sounds appeared again. The girl looked into the void and was seriously scared. Something terrible suddenly flew out at her. It was the last day of this unfortunate girl's life. In the morning, the main character went in search of the investigation bureau. The bus he was riding on was heading to the university town. Fan decided to go there and explore the surrounding area. He saw the news that a Taoist master had visited the hospital in search of ghosts. The hero immediately decided to transfer to another bus and go there. An hour later, he arrived at Joe City Hospital. As he got off the bus, he immediately caught the Gray Chi. He knew in advance that he would gather a lot of strength in this place. The public hospital is a fertile land where one can reap the benefits. Now, in addition to the pharmacy, the hero has another fertile plot. To see his harvest, Fan needs to open more of these plots. He suggested that such a site could be a university town. The harvest here can yield 5 or 10 Gray Chi at once. Fan planned to become the king of all plots in the near future. He immediately called a taxi and went to the university town. He wondered if the monk had managed to conduct an investigation at the hospital. After some time, the hero arrived in the university town. He was exhausted from the journey, but he needed to start searching. In this unfamiliar place, he didn't know where to begin. To begin with, he rented a bicycle. He searched all day, but never saw anyone from the Bureau of Investigation. He stopped to rest, and suddenly his phone rang. Fan was informed that his package had arrived. At that moment, the hero felt the appearance of Gray Chi. He realized that he was right about this area. While he was pondering the situation, a car rushed past him. Fan assumed that this car belonged to the Bureau of Supernatural Investigations. The Gray Chi probably comes from this machine. The young man decided to follow the car all the way. He needs to keep his distance to avoid being discovered. Soon the car disappeared from sight. She should still be somewhere near Fan. Now the hero is sure that the Bureau's base is located near the university. He decided to leave here before he was exposed. Fortunately, today was not wasted. Fan went home to pick up the package containing the volume. Finally, he received 4 volumes on martial arts. The books were devoted to the technique of fast limbs. The hero suspected that this was a copy of another author. Everything in this book seemed too familiar to him. But everywhere there were pictures of a monkey showing martial arts. Fan took a photo of the pictures and sent it to the seller with a complaint. The seller tried to explain that this monkey relates to Taoist meditation. Fan tried to expose the fraudster, but he failed. In fact, the master mixed the single concept of meditation with other types. He did it on purpose because he thought he was being contacted by a scammer. Yet, between the lines of this volume, Fan found the truth. He spent 2 glowing runes to try out the upgrade. He applied the enhancement to the purchased volume. The last time he did the same thing with the past books, and so the demon monkey scheme was improved. After improving, the young man decided to try reading the volume. In the package he saw only demonic eyes. When he looked closer, he saw a huge monkey. This monkey affects his entire spirit with just one look. Fan did not regret buying this martial arts manuscript. He didn't understand why he only saw eyes in the book. Fan was absolutely sure that it was a fraudulent fake. Meanwhile, Wei was reading a story about a strange guy. This guy rented an apartment and constantly encountered strange things in it. When he took a bath, he felt a bitter cold. A chill ran through his entire body. When the guy looked around, he did not notice any strangers. From the outside, it seemed that he was completely alone in the apartment. When the young man went out to inspect the rooms, he found no one. For several days in a row, he felt like someone was watching him. In horror, the young man decided to finish taking a shower. He assumed his nerves were due to the fact that this was his first time renting an apartment alone. But he felt the cold and the feeling of being watched in reality. When he got out of the shower, he saw a handprint. This fingerprint belongs to the one who has been spying on him all this time. The young man became alarmed that someone had really been here just now. He couldn't understand who would spy on such a loser. The guy attributed everything to hallucinations from fatigue. He went to bed and decided to rest, but suddenly he felt incredible pressure throughout his body. He could not move any part of his body. This was because the dark force had bound all his limbs. A ghost appeared above the man. It was a story about a cursed house that Wei was reading. This was already the 9th day of the investigation. After reading the stories, there was nothing suspicious. The next day, Wei read a story about the Undertaker's corpse. Since ancient times, there have been unfavorable professions involving working with corpses. Among these people were connectors who collected the corpses together. There used to be a lot of cruel punishments, which is why you could find dismemberments. The connectors made the body parts one whole and gave them a good appearance. They were often ostracized by those around them. The hero's grandmother was a connector, and he often watched her work. Before his grandmother's death, he encountered a strange suicide of a hunter. He also witnessed the death of a worker who was accidentally cut in half. His grandmother used papier-mâché to replace the missing body parts. However, she never allowed her grandson to interfere with her work. The grandson promised her that he would work hard to avoid doing such things. He started working part-time and suddenly received news of his grandmother's death. He had seen many corpses since childhood, but his grandmother's corpse scared him. The grandmother's body was stitched together from 2 different corpses. Wei was frightened by this story and heard a creepy stomping sound. She realized that she had managed to lure the criminal. This stomping came from another room of the library. Wei immediately went to check who was following her. When she reached the door, the clattering stopped. The officer assumed that it was the library security guards walking around. All her thoughts were the same as those of the ghost's previous victims. She realized that she was hearing the very steps that had been mentioned in the case. She discreetly sent a message to her colleagues about what had happened. After that, she personally went to check the other premises. She believed that she simply had to catch the criminal and finish the job. She heard footsteps but saw no one next to her. Soon she heard where the source of the sound was. When she reached the shelves, there was no one there either. The girl realized that a frontal attack wouldn't work. All she can do is just act like any normal victim. She decided to patiently lure the killer out of hiding. After some time, she realized that she had simply scared herself because of nerves. She packed her things and went home. A few minutes later, she arrived safely at her home. She was sure that the criminals were not pursuing her. She arrived on her floor, and everything was calm in the house. She was worried that all her neighbors were now at home. It was important to her that her work did not affect them. There were no mentions of incidents involving neighbors in the case file. Wei opened the apartment and walked inside. There were no signs in the apartment that anyone had entered it. Wei recalled that all the victims were in a locked room. The girl immediately locked the apartment door. She began to silently wait for the killer to appear. As expected, the stamping sound was repeated. The sound came from another room. Wei quickly sent a message to her team. In addition, she installed a camera in her room in advance. When she turned on the camera, it showed interference for so long. After that, Wei saw something frightening. Meanwhile, the main character felt the heavy aura of ghosts. He realized that it was coming from Officer Wei's apartment. He quickly broke through the wall and went to help. He saw the ghost dragging Wei along. It seemed that there was no way to save this girl. Wei was barely conscious and dimly saw her colleagues arriving. It was only when Fan attacked that she saw that it was someone else. She did not recognize her neighbor and mistook him for another ghost. Fan finally found out that the ghost was a papier-mâché man. Despite its paper body, the ghost's hands were dexterous and strong. Wei lost consciousness from fright and fell to the floor. This was a great chance for Fan to attack. When the girl came to, she did not understand what kind of person was radiating golden light. To fight the ghost, Fang Zhang used 9 yang energy. In addition, he activated the flaming wooden blade skill. The wooden blade becomes more and more powerful with each strike. Fan dealt blow after blow to the ghost. The paper man stood firm and endured more than 10 blows. When he got tired of enduring it, he began to run away from the hero. He was able to withstand more than 10 blows from the blade. The main character did not understand why the ghost did not attack him when it had the opportunity. The paper man ran away from Fan and hid in the shadows. He crawled under the table and thought he couldn't be seen. Fan began to destroy all the furniture to find the killer. He found the ghost through dark energy. In all his anger, Fan continued to destroy the furniture in Wei's apartment. The ghost kept running away from him and hiding under everything. This whole circus was getting on Fan's nerves. Meanwhile, Officer Wei began to choke. She cannot tolerate high temperatures because she is an ordinary human. Fan was afraid that she would suffer from severe dehydration due to the high temperature. First, he decided to take her outside. Meanwhile, the ghost immediately gave itself away. He emerged from his hiding place and stabbed the young man in the back. He was able to break through 15 layers of golden immunity. This ghost is stronger than the ghost that Fan destroyed earlier. The ghost ran away from the young man and began to mock him. Fan decided to leave the officer outside. Then he will be able to take any step and deal with the ghost. As he left the girl, the ghost crept up behind him. He struck again and the immune shield worked. Then the hero grabbed the blade and concentrated his chi energy on it. The flaming wooden blade's mastery should work in the hero's favor. Fan dealt a powerful blow, and it seemed that the ghost was almost destroyed. The hero no longer needs to worry about Wei and can now use his full power. He managed to catch the ghost and swing at it. This was the final blow of this battle. An explosion immediately erupted from the apartment. The police soon arrived at the crime scene. They came from different departments, and all the officers feared for Wei's life. Meanwhile, Wei came to her senses. She was glad that her colleagues saved her from the ghost, but she didn't understand where she was. Her apartment was completely destroyed, and only the sofa survived. Wei remembered that someone had broken in here. She realized that it was this man who saved her. The man's radiance was too bright, so the girl could not see his face. She realized that her savior had placed her on the sofa while she was unconscious. She decided to ask her colleagues what had happened to her. Colleagues reported that they had just arrived at the apartment and found her on the sofa. They showed Wei that they had found 2 different energy residues in the apartment. Wei learned from the men that they had not received any messages from her. They arrived here only when their colleagues stopped answering their calls. The girl picked up the phone and saw that she had been unconscious for almost 4 hours. Captain Jane entered the apartment and was glad that no murder had occurred. He was against Wei acting as bait for the killer from the very beginning. He promised that this would not happen again, as there was no need to risk Wei. But thanks to her, he developed an understanding of the picture of the progress of the case. The girl admitted that the case could be closed since the killer was dead. The captain announced that this was impossible, since another person had disappeared during the night. But the girl personally saw how the mysterious man killed this evil spirit. Police received a call from the victim, who also heard eerie footsteps. Previously, only one person disappeared every night. This time, 2 people disappeared at once during the night. After this situation, the police returned to the secret high-rise. Thanks to Wei, they completed the missing persons case. They learned that it was a papier-mâché man. The officers also thought that it was just a puppet being manipulated from the darkness. They ordered searches of all papier-mâché and funeral paper shops. They understood that all of this had to have a starting point. The police also put the mysterious master who saved Wei under surveillance. They suspected that this awakened man was hiding his identity. They knew that he woke up when all the spiritual energy returned on the night of the big moon. The main character immediately saw that he was being followed. He thought the officers had arrived to discuss the cost of renovating the apartment. After that incident, he was left with a papier-mâché paperman. It was unclear why this piece of paper survived the 9-yang flame. Fan didn't like that he only received 1 string of chi for killing the ghost. Most likely, the papier-mâché man is considered a low-level monster. Fan also assumed that for each kill he would receive only 1 thread. Suddenly, the paperman vibrated and flew towards the exit. The protagonist realized that he wanted to escape. With the help of the divine power of the 9-yang, Fan managed to capture the fugitive. He couldn't understand why the paperman kept rushing towards the exit. At that very moment, the boss of the pharmacy sensed something was wrong. He felt a flash of ghostly chi energy above him. This prevented him from preparing dinner for his family. The grumpy daughter had no idea that her father had sensed a terrible energy. Fan didn't understand why such an abnormal energy burst had erupted. The paperman felt a similar energy and wanted to break free from the hero's hands. The young man decided to take pity on him and let him out for a walk. He threw it at the door to see who it would lead him to. Further actions took place in the neighboring area. The girl was returning home late at night and she was scared. She realized that evil spirits were pursuing her. She wanted to get to her room as soon as possible. The light in the corridor began to flicker and frighten the girl. Fortunately, the heroine managed to enter a safe room. She did not feel any presence of an evil spirit in her apartment. When she relaxed, she heard those same footsteps. Moreover, the door to her room opened on its own. At that moment, the victim saw a pair of devilish eyes. The creature burst into the apartment and began to strangle the girl. The heroine tried to escape from the ghost's hands. Unfortunately, she was noticeably inferior to him. At that moment, Fan arrived to see her and introduced himself as a courier. He followed the paperman to keep people safe from him. It seemed that he was too late, since the girl was already in the hands of the monster. Sensing something was wrong, Fan used his energy and burst inside. He ordered the ghost to release the girl immediately. Fan managed to deal with the evil spirits in just a couple of minutes. Soon the ghost released the girl and threw her outside the apartment. At the same moment, an energy explosion occurred from the apartment. Fan realized that he had killed the same paperman last night. The ghost kept trying to escape from him. The hero caught up with him time after time with help. He explained to the ghost that he would kill him with a blade that cuts off heads. Fan decided to end it and dealt the final blow. The impact caused an explosion that was visible from the street. The police immediately rushed to the scene. They cordoned off the crime scene and removed the victim. The main character managed to escape before they arrived. Now he has 2 papier-mâché papermen. They will respond if there is another such person nearby. The hero was walking down the street and suddenly stepped on Joss's paper. Joss paper refers to the ghost money of the dead. There were countless numbers of these pieces of paper. Fan realized that the tall trees were blocking the light and yin energy. He realized that the people here must be affected by the abundance of gray chi. Suddenly, he saw a stranger who was lighting a fire in the middle of the night. The stranger asked Fan what incense was most afraid of. Incense is most afraid of 2 short sticks and 1 long one. According to legend, this hints at misfortune. Fan saw that the man's face looked like a dead man. For a long time, he hesitated to come closer and conducted the dialogue from a distance. He peeled off the paper that was stuck to his shoe. After this, he asked his master for forgiveness several times. Fan admitted that he accidentally stepped on his Joss paper. The protagonist's behavior made the stranger laugh. He continued to light the fire and burn incense. Fan smelled the pungent odor of a rotting corpse. The smell seems to be coming from the man's body. But suddenly the young man realized that this was not the smell of an ordinary rotting corpse. There was an aura of dead chi everywhere. There was a strong hidden patch of living energy among the dead. The hero wanted to know if this man was really alive. But a third party intervened and scolded Mr. Fu for scaring people. This voice seemed very familiar to Fan. He entered the building and saw the Butcher Jung. It was unclear what Butcher Jung was doing here in the middle of the night. He politely asked Fan if his knife was comfortable to use. The main character was afraid that the butcher suspected something. He answered him neutrally so that he would not reveal his abilities. Mr. Fu invited the guest inside. He himself left Jung and Fan alone. Fan smiled at the butcher, but fear raged inside him. He admitted that he was proud to use a blade that took off heads. The only drawback he noted was that the blade was too short. Butcher Jung invited the hero to have a drink with him. Fan assumed that his companion wanted to disable him. Jung began to ask the young man strangely about the taste of the alcohol he had drunk. For a second, the main character thought that he had poisoned him. Suddenly his gaze fell on the shelves where funeral items were everywhere. This shop looks very ordinary, but it was strange what Fu was doing here. The young man was curious about where the dead man's energy on Mr. Fu's body came from. The main character asked the butcher this question. The butcher invited the guest to personally check out his store. With each passing minute, the butcher's aura became more and more mysterious. And so Fan, together with Jung, entered the utility room. There were coffins with women's bodies everywhere. It was worrying that he was left alone with the butcher and the strange Mr. Fu. The butcher invited the guest to go with them in the evening and check everything out. The hero did not understand what kind of offer he had received. In his head there were images of cemeteries and morgues. He was thinking about how to attack the butcher with accusations of murder. His thoughts were interrupted by Fu, who picked up the paints. He went to the body of one of the women and began to draw. He drew a few lines on her face. After this, Fu asked Jung to help him close the coffins. Fan took the initiative so as not to appear suspicious. He closed the coffins himself and inspired confidence in himself. Meanwhile, Fu picked up a strange lantern that had an ominous aura about it. This lantern immediately caught Fan's attention. Jung asked Fu what kind of drawing he had drawn this time. Fu admitted that he did everything to ensure that no ghost or spirit would disturb him. The butcher announced that everything would work out today. The main character decided not to get involved in conversations and just go with the flow. He started talking nonsense related to esotericism. He explained that he simply wanted to match the mood with these words. Mr. Fu and Jung were clearly in no mood for jokes. Soon Fan and the two of them went down somewhere together. Fu hung a green lantern above the locked door. This green light has now become more abnormal. Jung brought up the topic of people who walk through the underworld. Those who can walk in the underworld are usually mediums. There are rumors that the soul of a living person can enter the place of the family or friends of the deceased. Jung admitted that this was just an ancient superstition. Today he wants to give Fan a taste of what it's really like to go through the underworld. The main character clearly didn't like this news. Fu needs to light the soul-guiding lantern before entering the underworld. Fan suggested that this lantern was filled with corpse oil. He knew that this oil was obtained from the chin of a dead pregnant woman. Fu warned Fan to be careful with people who use such a lantern. He gave permission to kill this man in the future, or bring him to Fu and Jung. Jung said the lantern was created from the deceased's last breath of resentment. They used this last breath of resentment to pass through the underworld. The protagonist asked those present how those 3 girls died. He was told that one girl was scared to death by what she saw through the lenses. The second girl got artificial nails and scratched her face. The third girl's wig completely filled her body, both inside and out. The other 3 girls died because of the evil mirror spirit. and originally there were 4 of them. A team of searchers wants to find this missing 4th girl. With the last breath of indignation from these girls, Fu is able to light a lantern to search. The location of the 4th girl is hidden by an evil mirror spirit. Mr. Fu announced the start of the operation. Sheng told Fan to put his hands on his shoulders. It all looked like the heroes were pretending to be zombies, and so they approached the door, and a dark aura emanated from it. The sound of the door opening gets louder with each turn of the key. Fan felt the ambient temperature drop as well. He didn't understand why the underworld was located behind this particular door. With some effort, the heroes managed to open this door. The door mechanism sounded like they had gears in them. This seemed strange, since the door was completely wooden. Zheng warned the hero that he could close his eyes if he became afraid. When the door closed, a feeling of fear filled the protagonist. The surrounding scene changed dramatically. Fan decided to activate the demon monkey meditation. This way, he will be able to see what is hidden from the eyes of an ordinary person. He blinked and saw that they were in a boat. There was a fog of dark energy everywhere. Zheng ordered Fan not to make a sound during the entire journey. At that moment, Fan had many questions that he couldn't ask. He couldn't understand how they suddenly ended up in a boat. This boat sailed on the water in the right direction on its own. This is what is called walking in the underworld. Fan felt as if he was walking through a cemetery in the dead of night. After driving some distance, he heard strange sounds. The sound was like a human body being torn apart, and the bones being scraped. In addition, a shapeless shadow flew past the boat. It was the hair of one of the victims. All along the way, the heroes encountered some strange things, but they all seemed peaceful to the experienced Fan. Ahead, a bright light broke through the fog and a city appeared. Driving further, Fan saw the Tongjiang Bridge. After the bridge, the black and white city of Zhou appeared, and so the team of searchers came ashore in this city. Fan wasn't entirely sure they were looking for the missing girl. He didn't recognize his bright and vibrant city. In the underground city, everything seems gray and lifeless. Fan remembered that he was not allowed to ask questions during the journey. He decided to follow Fu and Zheng as they explored the city. Butcher and Fu didn't say a word to each other on the way here. The whole city seemed like an empty shell to Fan, devoid of blood and flesh. The researchers actually came here to find the 4th girl. Suddenly, the lantern guiding the soul began to show the way. The protagonist immediately understood where they would end up now. It was the second city hospital in Zhou City. A few minutes later, the team entered her morgue. Fan knew that they would find nothing here but corpses. Fu quickly began to examine the boxes with bodies. The main character decided to join them to help. He opened the first box he came across and saw a ghost. The drawer closed by itself with a loud bang. Fu and Zheng immediately noticed this. This situation scared the experienced Fan to the point of goosebumps. He gestured to his companions to look in this box. Mr. Fu heard him but took no action. He announced to the team that they could leave. Fan suggested that they weren't actually looking for the missing girl. He had just found her lying in a cold cell, but no one paid any attention to it. He wanted to sort out this whole strange situation as soon as possible. There was a click, and the searchers returned. It seemed to Fan that several hours had passed since the beginning of their journey. He looked at his watch and saw the same time. After the heroes returned, the time remained the same, and only a few minutes had passed. It turns out that time doesn't flow evenly when you walk through the underworld. Butcher Zheng immediately called someone and reported the discovery. He said it was hidden in one of the morgue's refrigerated chambers. Fan asked him why they didn't save that missing girl. The butcher explained that these were just the memories of 3 murdered girls. The heroes saw what the girls saw before they died. The gray city of Zhou is not part of some parallel universe. The lantern borrows the last breath of resentment to briefly glimpse the victim's memories. All the strange things that happened during the journey told the heroes about the reasons for the death of these girls. One of the girls was scared, another choked on her hair, and the third tore her face. All this was experienced by researchers in the foggy world. They borrow the power of the dead's grievances, and it leads them to the mirror spirit. Fan thought that walking through the underworld was like entering someone's mind. Psychologists enter the minds of the living, and researchers enter the minds of the dead. It seemed like it was all a dream that lasted only a few minutes. In a dream, years can pass, but in reality it will take a couple of moments. Fanu immediately found these people strange. He wondered how they knew so much about the underworld. Zheng promised that Fang would definitely sort everything out in the future. That same night, a car pulled up to the second city hospital. Agents from the Bureau of Investigation emerged from it. All their actions were quick so as not to attract any attention. They took everything they needed and headed to the morgue. The hospital worker had already evacuated everyone to the basement, as these people ordered him to do. They ordered him to pretend that nothing had happened. The protagonist knew that people would definitely come to this morgue, and he arranged for them to be followed. He wanted to follow them to reap the benefits. He went to the park, which is closest to the morgue. He thought for a long time about Mr. Fu and Butcher Jung. At that moment, another gray thread flew into his supply. The main character realized that it was not in vain that he decided to come here. Professionals from the bureau appeared at this hospital immediately after the underground journey. Most likely, Fu and Jung have some connection with the investigation bureau. Perhaps Jung already knew about Fan, and that's why he offered him that trip. The Bureau of Supernatural Investigations car suddenly drove back. The protagonist realized that it was very dangerous to start surveillance from this place. He walked carefully towards the local university. Here he decided to wait for the opening. It was the China University of Electronics and Technology. Fan took a shortcut and arrived here before everyone else. He hid behind cover and saw the bureau's car. The young man managed to perform this trick. The car drove by without suspecting anything. He drove along the road that leads to 3rd Avenue. Fan knew the area, which had several residential complexes and institutions. The bureau cannot be located in one of the apartments or in the college. Fan was tormented by the thought that it was still hidden inside the university. Luckily, his friend's mother was a professor at a teacher training college. After a few minutes, the bureau car still hadn't appeared. The hero stopped surveillance and returned home. Wei's apartment remained sealed and had not been restored. Fan hadn't seen Officer Wei since that night. He lives near the crime scene and needs to be careful. He covered the windows so that the officers would not identify him and force him to pay for the repairs. Forgetting what had happened, he began to cultivate. He had only 3 runes that would help him increase his power. The next day I went to the neighboring area. He followed the responses of the papermen. He approached the right apartment, but no one opened the door for him. Then the main character decided to knock down the door. He managed to find the papier-mâché man again. As soon as the ghost noticed him, he immediately started running away. Fan used a blade that cut off the heads of ghosts. He knew that with its help, he would be able to get the paperman. Soon the ghost was killed and Fan received Grey Chi. Over the past few days, he has received 4 papermen. After another hunt, he saw a stream of Grey Chi. These were other papermen who would cause trouble tonight. It was the first time Fan had an extra catch in a day. He rushed after the ghosts to get richer. The ghosts went to the Jisha area, and Fan followed them to one of the apartments. The papermen scared all the residents to death. After capturing the ghost, the hero decided to take up another job. Suddenly he noticed a cheerful group of people nearby. These people seemed too familiar to him. They looked like those 2 from that tribe. As soon as they noticed Fan, they immediately left. The young man ran after them to stop and ask a couple of questions. The 4 pieces of paper in his hand no longer responded to the dark energy. But suddenly it dawned on Fan that he had recently given Wei a list of scary stories. He realized that she had used herself and had successfully reached the papier-mâché people. Apparently, the Bureau of Supernatural Investigations followed her plan. They stole Fan's catch day after day. Fan's investigation in the university town also yielded no results. Fan passed through this city day and night, but gained nothing from these visits. He planned to meet a friend whose mother works at the university. He began to act early the next morning. Before an important matter, he decided to go to the film crew because of a promise to his second friend. The road will be long, and the hero hopes to return within the day. Meanwhile, the city police station was conducting an investigation into the missing persons case. Officer Wei returned to duty after a short rest. One of her colleagues offered to help her with the forensic examination. It was criminal psychologist Wen. He realized that his colleague had come here for a photo portrait. He was proud that such a fragile girl was working on such a terrible case. He took a pencil and paper to draw a suspect. All Wei remembered was that the boy was too young. His whole body was enveloped in bright light. The officer had no idea that she was currently taking a photo of her neighbor. After 20 minutes, she decided to change her memories a little. It seemed to her that this man did not look like the one she saw on the day of the crime. Finally, Fan's portrait was ready. Wei couldn't believe her eyes that her neighbor was the savior. The filming location Fan needed was located deep in the mountains far from the city of Zhou. The hero needs to change to several buses to get there. The final bus will take him directly to the desired settlement. On the way, the bus stopped at a bus stop. All passengers had to wait until the bus was full of people. The passengers insisted that the driver not wait for anyone and continue on his way. The driver was angry because he didn't want to go to that mystical settlement. One beautiful passenger insisted on her way, and the bus moved on. There was a group of military men riding next to Fan on the same bus. There were also ordinary citizens who wanted to spend the weekend outside the city. None of the passengers suspected what they would encounter. Only the main character felt that he would encounter mysticism in the settlement. And then the bus stopped because of a sudden thunderstorm. Many passengers regretted going on this long journey. The sudden onset of the downpour seemed too suspicious to Fan. The bus went a little further, but the rain prevented it from seeing the road. Many people have never seen such heavy rain in their entire lives. The driver announced that they had to stop because he couldn't see anything. Otherwise, he will put the lives of passengers in danger. He suggested that they find a local village to take shelter from the rain. Fortunately, none of the passengers objected. Soon the bus slowly reached the village of Gujing. An icy wind penetrated the interior of the bus and chilled the passengers' bones. None of the people had yet had lunch, which aggravated the general misfortune. The driver couldn't let their morale drop. He went to the village to ask the local residents for help. He soon returned with a crowd of people who responded to his request. The driver allowed the passengers to get off the bus and go to the village. The village headman has already instructed the residents to prepare food and water for them. A few minutes later, a crowd of passengers entered the Gujing ancestral hall. The local elder fed and warmed them. All the people were grateful to him for his help. The head of the village, Gujing, believed that he should help those in need. Many passengers thanked the locals with a small amount of money. Soon everyone became bored waiting for the rain to stop. Suddenly, someone from the people suggested hearing the legends of this village from the lips of the village elder. The old man didn't like this idea, but the girls managed to persuade him to tell one story. He announced that in their village there is a legend connected with today's downpour. This is exactly the kind of horror story the guests wanted to hear. When the sky splits, a heavy rain will fall to the earth. After the rain, a woman will appear and say that she is looking for her son. To this question, residents must answer that the child is hiding somewhere in the mountains. They should under no circumstances say that they have not seen the child. The village headman said that they had a woman whose child froze to death during a downpour. This mother went crazy and disappeared one day. Soon after each rainstorm, she returns to the village and knocks on the door. She asks the villagers if they have seen her child. This story caused great fear among the bus passengers. They were afraid that some woman would knock on their door at midnight. The old man insisted that this story was made up to scare naughty children. That woman must be about 200 years old and she simply doesn't exist. Suddenly everyone heard another car approaching them. The old man left the passengers and decided to check out the situation. He returned with 10 people who were also stuck on the road. Along with them, he also brought some bad news. The downpour caused several landslides around the mountains and all roads are blocked. The headman asked local residents to provide several rooms for the guests. Once everything was settled, dusk set in. The continuous rain also stopped at this time. Almost all the tourists had already fallen asleep by this hour. One girl was very frightened by the story and could not sleep. She was afraid that this woman would come to her door. She crawled under the covers, waiting to sleep. But suddenly she heard loud stomping. At the same time, there was a knock on her door. The girl hoped that one of the passengers had come to visit her. Suddenly she heard the very question that the headman had mentioned. The girl looked at the door and was horrified. The ghost of a dead woman stood at the door. He gently apologized and asked if the girl had seen her son. Morning came and there was a noise in the village. The main character did not understand what caused this. He went outside to check out the situation. All the passengers were discussing what had happened that night. They interrogated a girl who almost became a victim of a ghost. It turned out that she was not the only one who experienced this horror. She correctly answered the ghost that her child hid in the mountains during the rain. The guys replied that they simply hadn't seen him. Fanu found it strange that this particular legend had happened to them. Many people thought that someone was playing a cruel joke on them. None of them dared to open the door and look at the woman. They were afraid to open the door at night in an unfamiliar place. A couple of minutes later, the village elder arrived to see these people. This time he looked too serious. The guests suggested that the authorities were trying to hide something from them. The headman questioned those who heard the woman knocking at night. Besides the passengers, even local residents saw this woman, but they did not recognize her as the woman from the legend. The headman suggested that one of the guests could have pretended to be this woman. He suggested going to the Hall of Ancestors to investigate the matter. All the guests agreed and followed him. When they arrived at the ancestral hall, they saw local residents. The villagers didn't look friendly at all. They were too angry that the guests made fun of them. And so the village sage came out to the people. It was he who asked the tourists to return back to his village. He asked local residents to spot the prankster among the crowd of tourists. He mentioned that there was no room for lies in this hall as the ancestors were watching over them. No local resident also has the right to accuse a person without evidence. This situation reminded the hero of ancient times, when people were publicly executed. The residents lined up all the women in a row so that everyone could examine them. But suddenly people noticed one similarity between the woman and the girl present. They thought that this girl's skin was just as pale and haggard. After much debate, the villagers found no evidence. They were sure that it was not one of the tourists stuck in the village. The sage asked residents to publicly apologize to tourists. He himself did the same and asked for forgiveness from the passengers. Then all charges against the tourists were dropped. Fan remembered that the outer road was completely blocked by a landslide. In such a situation, outsiders simply could not reach this small village. The passengers were afraid that the woman from the strange story would return to the village. But the woman they met looked only 25 years old. The village elder had previously said that the woman must be at least 200 years old. Fanu wanted to know whether it was a spirit or an evil joke. If it was a spirit, it was definitely looking for Fan. The headman ordered everyone present not to go outside at night. Besides this, he ordered them to hang roosters at each entrance. The main character didn't know why this needed to be done. He came to Aunt Ju to ask about this ritual. The aunt explained that after strange events, the headman forces them to hang roosters. Roosters are creatures that protect homes from any evil. They drive away yin energy and bring in yang energy. During a funeral, the grieving person would throw a rooster into the grave to drive out the evil spirit. Since there are many superstitions, in the village they believe that roosters protect from evil. The villagers had clearly been prepared for such events in advance. Late at night, everyone went home and did not go outside. Local resident Pan Hong wanted to wash his face, but there was no water in the tap. He decided to draw water from the well in the courtyard. He was afraid that he would run into the woman from history. It made him angry that someone's joke could frighten all the residents so much. The roosters began to crow and warn him of the threat. The old man told them to be silent, as everything around was calm. He looked around and found no one. Those roosters really scared him with all the fuss. Pan wanted to get some water and quickly returned to the room. He believed that all people are afraid because of trifles. He, as the wealthiest resident of the village, could not humiliate himself before these horrors. No scary story will make him give up his normal nightly needs. He returned home and heard water dripping nearby. He immediately thought that someone other than him was drawing water, but it was water pouring from the ghost's body. The old man looked out the window and saw that same woman. At first he thought that this was another joke from the guests. He went outside to look the Joker in the eye. Once he opened the door, it was too late to reverse the action. Before him stood the spirit of a woman, with water dripping from her. The man realized that she looked a little strange today. Yesterday she was completely dry, but today she was soaked to the bone. Pan tried to find out from her who was really hiding behind her, but the ghost of the woman did not answer him. The man repeated several times that he had never seen her child. He looked closer and saw a tattoo on her shoulder. He knew that the woman in the horror story didn't have any tattoos. The ghost's entire back was covered with skulls and graves. Suddenly the man's body froze, and Pan could not make a single sound. The ghost paralyzed him and killed him that same night. Strange events also happened to the nearby roosters. The next day, bad news spread through the village again. Fan felt that something mystical had happened. He was informed that 2 villagers had gone missing the previous night. This was another disappearance from Fan's personal experience. The missing residents were Widow Man and Mr. Pan. Their friend passed by the house in the morning and saw that the doors were wide open. There were slight differences between the disappearance of Pan and the Widow Man. After the disappearance of the Widow Man, the doorbell rooster disappeared without a trace. It looked as if someone had untied the rooster on purpose. The residents were sure that this was that terrible woman. The night before last, Pan and Man opened the door and saw the woman's appearance. They sharply replied to her that they had never seen her child. The elder knew that these people could not have disappeared without an apparent reason. He suggested that everyone search every area to save people. Suddenly, one of the people invited Fan to go with him. This young man is a tourist from the stranded bus. He led him to a group of other tourists. They all decided to leave this village immediately. They believed that mysticism began to happen immediately after their arrival here. However, the landslide blocked all entrances and exits to the road. Even if tourists wanted to, they still wouldn't be able to leave this village. They suggested organizing a group to clear the road. The choice fell on strong-willed guys from the army. 3 soldiers took the initiative to bring the tourists home. Each of them was a veteran of several wars. Captain Sun immediately noticed that the residents had a lot of agricultural machinery. These machines may be useful to them for clearing the landslide. He is confident that residents will help him with the cars. To clear the landslide, he also needs the labor of strong men. He decided to go to the headman to ask for help. The bus driver took charge of the group during his absence. One of the soldiers suggested exchanging contacts to stay informed about all the events. Thus began the first day of road clearing. The protagonist knew that another supernatural incident would happen today. He decided to talk to local residents to clarify the situation regarding the woman. On the way, he arrived at Li Pan's house. There is not a single person here, as the villagers consider this place to be sinister. The main character planned to find some clues about the disappearance here. It's daytime now, so he won't be able to find anything. But suddenly he felt a dark aura. This place looked especially gloomy. Fan looked around and discovered a small puddle. He stood in it and was able to look into Pan's courtyard. This means that someone was standing here last night and watching the man. At that moment, Fan felt a heaviness in his legs. All his legs were covered in black energy. The puddle began to suck him in, but Fan quickly reacted. A moment later, he felt himself falling down. As he was falling, he heard someone calling for his mother. It was definitely a baby's cry. The hero did not fall down, but hovered above the source of the sound. As expected, it was a small crying child. Fan began to rapidly lose his strength. To make up for the deficiency, he used the demon monkey meditation. His entire body was restored in a second. Fan wanted to talk to this boy to clarify the situation, but he was suddenly thrown back into the yard. Before this, all strong ghosts always appeared only at night. However, this ghost can appear during the day, and this is very bad. Fan felt like he had been hit on the head with an axe. There was too much negative energy in that little puddle. The young man realized that everyone would have big troubles because of this ghost. He ran to the headman to tell him about this puddle. He planned to cut down the bamboo forest, which prevents the sun from transmitting yang energy. Because of these trees, the negative yin energy here is very strong. Ordinary people cannot withstand this negative energy. When Fan ran to the headman, he saw one of the local residents. Seeing Fan, the young man immediately disappeared. He entered the house and watched Fan's actions through the crack. The hero found his behavior too strange. Fan wanted to talk to him, but he abruptly locked the door. It seems that all local residents are trying to stay away from this unpleasant story. The main character wanted to quickly find out what was going on. He went to the same Aunt Jo. The woman didn't expect that Fan would come to her again. She felt that he came back too weakened. Fan had a question about the name of Gujing village. This name meant that there was an old well in the village. This well is located in the ancestral home and has been abandoned for many years. Long ago, adults sealed this well to prevent children from falling into it. These residents are now at least 80 years old. Fan remembered seeing a vision of a child sitting at the bottom of a well. He asked Jo if this story was true, but the auntie did not answer. From her expression, Fan realized that she was hinting at the evil spirit of the well. She only replied that it was too long ago, and it was not preserved in her memory. It all looked as if the old woman had lost her child herself. Fanu couldn't understand why the child's mother had gone crazy and was coming to the village at night. He felt that there were fictitious elements in that story to mislead people. The story clearly began with an already closed well in the ancestral home. The hero decided to go to the house of his ancestors and reveal the truth. He entered the hall and saw that the inhabitants were making sacrifices to their deceased ancestors. Fan felt uncomfortable intruding into this personal atmosphere of people now. Suddenly he received a message that his team was going to clear the mountain road. The squad captain saw that Fan was not looking too well, so he led the people to clear the mountain road and left the young man in the village. One of the tourists wanted to take advantage of this moment to get closer to Fan. But at that very moment, local residents returned from searching for victims. The village headman failed to find any traces of the crime. Fan didn't understand where the people had disappeared to, since all the roads were blocked. The headman ordered all the residents to hang roosters at the entrance and lock themselves in the house. A girl named Cece from a group of tourists stayed in a separate room. Her mother forbade her to live under the same roof with her man. When the girl was left alone, she heard a strange sound. It was the sound of dripping water. The heroine thought that she was scaring herself. Still, she decided to check the window and doors so she could go to bed peacefully. When she opened the window, she was shocked. It was to her that the ghost of the restless woman came that night. Morning came and everyone was looking for the missing Cece. Her lover suspected the locals of this ridiculous joke. He thought they hid it to tickle his nerves. The soldier told Fan that more than 10 people had gone missing last night. Then the military offered their help in searching for the missing people. The rest of the tourists, except Fan, must continue clearing the way. The main character spent this vacation usefully. Early in the morning, he arrived at his ancestral home while no one was there. He examined the area and did not see a well anywhere. He remembered that Auntie Jo had said that the well had been sealed. The well was either destroyed, or it had been hidden underground all this time. Suddenly, Fan received a message from the group. The tourists discovered something horrific while clearing the way. Fan had no idea what he was about to see. Tourists unearthed the skeleton of a murdered man on the road. Fan went to the place of discovery and put off the matter with the well for later. This skeleton was quite old, at least 10 years old. Judging by the width of the pelvis, it was clear that this was the skeleton of a woman. The soldiers carefully examined every bone. There are traces of blunt force trauma on the back of the skull. There were many similar fractures on the body. Most likely the woman died from injuries, and someone buried her body in the mountains. The soldiers reported this to the police. Fan assumed that the killer was still in the village. The tourists found the body of his victim, and he clearly wants to kill the tourists. With every passing minute, it becomes even more dangerous for the village's guests to be here. The hero decided to find a way out of this situation as soon as possible. He went to explore the area until a rescue team arrived. Fanu wanted to evacuate all the village residents with the help of professionals. It will take the rescue team several days to completely clear the road. If tourists can hold out for at least 3 days, it can be called a miracle. Fan climbed much higher than the road and discovered another landslide. Then he realized that the rescue team was too far from the village. He decided to look for them and demand at least some help. He ran a couple of kilometers, but there were landslides at every step. With these landslides, the tourists' chances of survival dropped sharply. Fan didn't want to let people's lives be ruined by a few landslides. Then he decided to go to the top to get a full view of the area from above. As he climbed higher, his body began to tremble. His legs were slowly being pulled into the ground. Fan realized that the landslides and all of this was a ghostly vision. It is because of him that he will not be able to reach the top of the mountain. Just in case, Fan activated the monkey meditation. With the help of special vision, he will be able to see what is invisible to ordinary people. But the monkey demon's meditation had no effect. The hero realized that he had nothing to look for here. He has only one chance to find out about this place. The reason he can't see the mountains must be hidden in the village. The scale and scope of this ghostly vision is truly terrifying. It captured the entire village and the entire group of tourists in a vision. But the vision at Li Pan's house cannot be part of another vision. Fan suggested that it was like a dream within a dream. Suddenly he heard a team of tourists. These people were worried that they would not have time to finish cleaning the area. He suggested that these people were also a ghostly apparition. He was afraid that they would mislead him. But he remembered how they got on the bus together and went to this village. He realized that not all the people had arrived with them. Those 10 people arrived here much later. By evening, Fan returned home and conducted an energy recovery training session. He heard the neighbors discussing that the rooster was not moving. At that moment, the young man felt dark energy. He realized that something had happened to Uncle Lee and Aunt Jo. At that moment, Fan pulled out a head-severing blade. He arrived at the neighbors, but their doors were already open. The ghost moved too fast, and Fan didn't have time to help his victims. The rooster on Auntie Jo's door mysteriously disappeared. This time, Fan noticed someone running in the bushes. This man was alone, and neither Auntie Jo nor Uncle Lee were by his side. He is probably not the real criminal. Fan wanted to follow him, but he felt a strong wind. It was too cold a wind for these parts, and something was clearly wrong. The apartment doors suddenly closed in front of the hero, and ghostly hands appeared. The ghost of a woman arrived, covered in water. She asked Fan the same question she had asked her previous victims. This time her face seemed unwilling to hurt others. Fan assumed that the village chief was part of the vision, and he had misled everyone. Perhaps he specifically told this woman what to answer. Without waiting for an answer, the ghost asked Fan the same question again. The woman was angry that she had met such an uncultured young man. Then Fan started talking complete nonsense about good and evil. The woman's ghost repeated her favorite question over and over again. He realized that this time he was dealing with a complete fool. Fan told the ghost about the stars and facts from various fields. The woman asked her question more and more insistently between Fan's stories. Fan realized that he would never be able to win in a dialogue with a woman. He just needs to continue this boring conversation until dawn. And so the ghost repeated his question for the 43rd time. Fan noticed that there was that same puddle under the woman's feet. It was this puddle that he saw near Li Pen's house. Fan moved some distance to avoid falling into this puddle. The woman's ghost forgot about him and began looking for her son. A woman desperately called for her son from the mountainside. Later, she brought the protagonist to the Hall of Ancestors. Thanks to her, Fan discovered that cursed well. He saw it through the eyes of a dead woman. But suddenly dark energy hit him on the head from behind. The blow was so strong that it was comparable to the blow of an axe. Fan realized that at that moment the woman was hit from behind by someone. He soon came to his senses and realized that he had entered into a ghost's vision. He realized that the woman was not a vision, as she had already pounced on him. With her claws, she pierced 24 layers of the protective membrane. The young man was afraid that he would die today. He braced himself so that the next blow would not land on his head. The woman's ghost suddenly lost all its rage. The deceased woman grabbed the protagonist by the intimate part. Fan pushed her away and tried to explain that he was not that kind of person. The woman continued to feel him and came across a scroll with runes. At that moment, her whole body shook, and the ghost felt pain. The golden scroll vibrated and became covered in bright flames. His special energy hit the ghost. The dead woman could do nothing about it. She started to run, but Fan wanted to continue the fight. He believed that she should take responsibility for the deaths of the residents. Suddenly he saw on her back a tombstone with 3 short sticks of incense. Without thinking, He grabbed the blade and pounced on the ghost. The woman was unable to escape and had to accept the attack. After the impact, the entire area was covered with Fan's energy. If the ghost had struck again, the hero would not have been able to survive. She had already torn through almost all the protective layers of the membrane. It turns out that secret writing can suppress ghosts. This helped Fan block a serious attack. After the battle with the ghost, morning came. The young man went in search of an ancient well. He wanted to arrive at the Hall of Ancestors, while there was still no one there. But when he approached the building, he saw that the doors were open. Someone got here before him. Just in case, the hero grabbed the mysterious scroll of the manuscript. When he entered, he found a group of tourists. The tourists tied up the man Fan had seen in the bushes the previous night. The soldier reported to Fan that this man was the first to suggest that all the missing people were connected. In addition, last night he intentionally stole the rooster of one of the victims. The team leader warned the tourists to avoid meeting with the villagers. He called a team here to dig up this ancient well as quickly as possible. Fan learned from the soldiers that they had been on duty all night to prevent people from being kidnapped. The soldiers considered it their duty of honor to defend the lives of civilians. In fact, the protagonist was delighted by their risk. Only these soldiers dared to risk their lives to selflessly save everyone. And so a team of tourists arrived at the Hall of Ancestors. The leader of the group wanted to notify everyone about the reason for their arrival, but he was killed by local residents. They arrived at the ancestral hall with their weapons at hand. They accused the tourists of secretly invading the Hall of Ancestors. The locals wanted to kill these tourists, despite the sanctity of this place. The tourists realized that their actions had desecrated the memory of the local residents' ancestors. The soldiers turned to the village elder to tell him everything. Once upon a time, the villagers did not worship the sages, but believed in the mountain god. The mountain god existed inside a temple, next to which there was a deep well. The villagers made sacrifices to God every 5 years. Every 5 years they would kidnap a couple of children from outside the village. All this continued until they encountered a refugee mother and son. The temple of the mountain god was soon destroyed, but the inhabitants rebuilt it, turning it into an ancestral hall. These madmen started attacking children in their own village for sacrifice. They threw the bodies of children into the well, and one of them was Uncle Lee's child. It seemed strange to Fan that Uncle Lee and Aunt Jo had disappeared so mysteriously. The dead child was the daughter of a captured resident. This man set the villagers' roosters free for revenge. In fact, he was not a criminal in the murders. It was clear to the soldiers that the village elder had never heard of her before. It was only over time that he moved here and became its head. A wise man appeared in the village who believed that this was all slander. The soldiers told him that the captured resident had given the name of his daughter's killer. It was this village sage who was the killer. The soldiers reported everything that was happening to the outside authorities. The old man got angry and hit the ground with his cane. At that moment, everyone present felt a heavy energy. The floor moved and Fan discovered the location of the well. Coffins began to appear under the floor of the Hall of Ancestors. There were about 15 of these coffins. Suddenly, the date of the day they entered the village appeared on the tourists' phones. Their group chat also disappeared without a trace. The cursed well appeared to everyone present. A lot of dead hair came out of the well. The protagonist could not allow the ghost to finish off his defense. He was the first to rush to a safe place. The tourists were stunned and didn't know where to go. This black hair was crawling out of the well onto them. Realizing the full danger, the tourists started running. The soldiers led the evacuation of tourists to the exit of the village. The frightened passengers were afraid to touch this hair. The hair reached through the Hall of Ancestors all the way to the street. The passengers climbed onto the bus and asked the driver to leave as quickly as possible. By that time, all the roads were cleared. The tuft of hair continued to catch up with its victims. The soldiers decided that someone would have to stay and buy time for the others. They decided to stay put together because of the presence of the heroic spirit. They told the bus driver to go without them. They themselves took the cars of other tourists to lure this creature. Along the way, they collected the bodies of murdered tourists. A couple of minutes later, the bus was already driving along a safe road. Suddenly, someone jumped straight down from the bus. It was the main character who rushed to help the military. He took blood restoration tablets with him from the bus. Fan personally realized that the entire village was an illusion. He took one of the pills and his condition improved. He wanted to save the soldiers as quickly as possible. The young man used acceleration through the demon monkey meditation. Meanwhile, the tuft of hair was catching up with the cars with soldiers. Suddenly, one of the cars crashed into the fence and stopped. The car's passengers were worried that they were about to meet their death. The other soldier wanted to save these innocent people. He drew the hair's attention to himself. A tuft of hair hit him and knocked over the car. The car flew straight towards the cliff towards the main road. Later it crashed and an energy explosion occurred. The bus passengers asked the driver to save these people. Fortunately, the driver of the car survived. This strand of hair cannot be detected by him because of the corpses he is transporting. His friend tried to push the hair away from other people. He was not afraid to give his life for his fellow soldiers. Suddenly he noticed a train moving next to him. He slammed on the brakes so his hair wouldn't notice the train. But suddenly a tuft of hair walked around his car. A brilliant explosion occurred thanks to the power of the protagonist's 9 yang. The soldier didn't understand what kind of superhuman speed Fan had. Fan took out a flaming blade and began to chop off the hair. But the hair didn't feel any danger from him. They were still trying to surround Fan. The protagonist knew that he would definitely defeat this entity. He launched his blade to cut off most of the hair. Later he realized that his blade could not cut them. The hair suddenly became hard as steel. They gradually surrounded the protagonist, luring him inside. Fan's entire body was covered with hair in a matter of seconds. The young man released the energy from himself and cut off his hair. The ghost got scared of him and started running. Fan didn't stop there and followed the hair. This ghost was much weaker than Fan thought. The young man suggested that the ghost had become weakened after touching his private parts. The soldier followed him all the way. He wanted to help Fan in any way he could. He believed that such a strong man should not die because of a ghost, and so they returned to the cursed village. The tuft of hair was clearly luring Fan into its lair. The ghost did not look for any means of escape. The hero realized that the hair wanted to kill him right here. The woman's skeleton is at the bottom of the well, so the main body cannot leave it. Fan needs to try to locate this main body. This time the 100-year-old ghost decided to attack from behind. Fan's mysterious writings greatly weakened the power of the evil spirits. For the approaching battle, Fan used Arhat's golden immunity. With this technique, he restored his strength and protective shell. He struck blow after blow to find the ghost's body. He was the first to use the technique of the burning sun flame. Fan smelled a thick, rotting stench, and it seemed like his actions were working. He managed to reach the main body of the evil spirit. The ghost rushed towards the coffins to possess another body. Fan was sure that he would soon achieve his death. He struck the ghost and killed it. At that moment, all the coffins disappeared. The hero realized that this was another ghostly vision. But this vision was much less powerful than the previous ones. It turned out that the ghost was not killed and simply hid. The hero first used the bell shape for defense. He had a secret technique for the final kill in his arsenal. Despite her power, her hair protected the ghost's shadow. The hero decided to focus only on the shadow. It was the shadow that was the true body of the whole being. By concentrating on the shadow, Fan was able to deliver the decisive blow. He finished off the body of a skeleton lying at the bottom of a well. At that moment, the ghost became noticeably agitated. He didn't know where to hide from this dangerous man. He followed him to deliver the finishing blow. He reproached the ghost for interfering with his manly determination. But now the decisive blow has been dealt. The ghost vanished as if it had never been there. Fan immediately received lime green chi. Perhaps it was because the spirit was of a more elite level. And this time the young man decided to destroy the traces of the fight so that he would not be identified. Meanwhile, a rescue team arrived to help the tourists. Fan realized that they belonged to the Bureau of Supernatural Investigations. He was grateful to himself that he had removed the traces of the battle in time. He was also glad that all 3 soldiers were alive. Suddenly, one of the passengers remembered that one person had been thrown off the bus. A couple of hours later, the main character was assigned to the psychological department. The expert put him under hypnosis to see the events of that day. The hero pretended to fall asleep. It was important for the experts to know what Fan was facing in that situation. The young man imagined himself returning to his childhood, where there were many toys. The head of the department thought that the hypnosis had worked. The nurse continued to guide Fan into deep sleep. She created the illusion of mirrors that reflected Fan's real images. One of these mirrors should have contained the image of yesterday's Fan. The hero emerged from the dream and told the girl that he wanted to get closer to her. The patient's behavior clearly confused this nurse. She accused Fan of trying to take advantage of the moment and her. She felt awkward that she met such a person on her first mission. It turned out that she was simply playing the role of a doctor, but in fact she was awakened. He and the master decided to finish with Fan, since there were still 10 passengers waiting for them. The master did not feel any particular energy fluctuations from Fan. He didn't realize that the young man was simply resisting his hypnosis. After the examinations, Fan returned to the village of Gujing, where the soldiers gave him a ride. The other passengers on the bus no longer remember the horrific scene of the previous night. Fan's memories were not erased, and his abilities were not revealed. This was not the only time Fan eluded the Bureau of Supernatural Investigations. He arrived at one of the houses of this cursed village. He saw a black dog digging a grave. This meant that someone would soon be announced dead, or that the dog's owner had died.